So I want to, before we start on the 2023 off season, Kevin, I know as a fellow man who has a wife who also watches a ton of trash TV. Have you heard of Love Island?
Hosted by Ariana Maddox,
I don't know
narrated by
more.
Alan Cumming.
You know more about it than I do, which is fascinating because Sophia has caught up on I want to say like 20 something episodes of Love Island that she was behind on this past 4th of July weekend.
They've been putting it on daily.
And they put
I
it.
saw the first episode. It's on daily, I think.
It
It's
is literally.
nuts.
It is on daily. It is on not Monday through Friday. It is on Monday through Sunday. It is on every single day. So she was 20 something episodes behind, and I looked at her and I'm like, Sophia, how the hell? Mind you, I know what I listen to is probably considered trash to some people. I know that what I watch might be considered I consume a fuck ton of football content. So I understand
I would say what we're producing right now is trash to
it's
almost all
trash
people.
to most people. I agree. So, but I looked
I'm
at
one of the
her.
people.
Yeah. It 1000%. You would hate this. You would hate what we're doing right now. Um, but I looked at her and I'm like, how the hell can you consume that much trash at once? And she's just like, don't judge. Obviously. So I asked her, I was like, next time you have to do a marathon like this, I need you to do me a favor. And she was pissed. I thankfully did not have to sleep on the couch. I was like, I need you to take an IQ test before you start binge watching the show, and then I want you to take one right after. Yeah, it was a bad joke.
Ooh.
I still stand by that comment. I still stand by it. IQs mean nothing. Let me be clear here, but I still stand by that comment. Anyway, Kevin, how are you doing, man?
Did you ever watch the Boondocks growing up?
No, but I've seen a ton of clips.
Okay. Well, not worth getting into. But
Oh, why?
I'll just say there's the only thing what you said that the little comment reminded me of is there's two kids.
Yep.
One kid is socially aware, really into black issues, and the other kid is kind of portrayed as the yin to his yang. But so the smarter, socially aware kid decides to do like a supersize me style experiment where he's going to watch nothing but black TV for like a week straight. And he does like a cognitive test or something beforehand, and then a week later, like he's much stupider.
Oh no.
I
mean,
listen. I don't have any commentary on that myself. That's the Boondocks job, but
yep.
it was close enough and it was very funny.
Yep. I mean, if essentially what I'm doing, but for Bravo. Well, no, this is on Peacock, but
This is
Bravo
on
style.
Peacock, but Ariana is a Bravo star.
Yeah,
I mean, do you know
you
what
know way
Ariana's
more than
from? Do you know
you
where
know
she's
way
from?
more. No, what is she from?
Oh, come on, man. She's from Vanderpump Rules.
Oh,
And
Vanya.
I fucks with Vanderpump Rules
And I fucks with Lisa Vanderpump.
I
Uh,
in a way I don't really think is appropriate for
for content, she's a babe. I
this
don't know.
podcast.
Sorry, I'm just if I was single and she found me.
40 years older.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I'm fine. It's fine with me. I'm just not gonna look at the camera as I say this. Anyway, what's going on, dude? What where do we want to start? I know we left off. We left off
I
with the
want to welcome
Bears.
our listeners. We never welcome our
Welcome.
listeners. Hi guys. Hi.
Hi to the hi Kevin's dad.
Welcome. Well, I don't even know about that. Hi, possibly one of Sarah's coworkers. I
Possibly.
hope so.
We'll see.
Hi,
If
Jill.
he says hi back,
I
we'll know.
not
Yes,
not doxing, just doxed. Hi, Jill. Um, yeah. So, yeah. Last week was. You haven't even published the damn thing yet, but last week was
these will be going up together.
a
Part one and
fairly
part two will be going up together.
a fairly dry. A little net around me. A fairly dry recap of the 2022 offseason. And a couple things I wanted to hit on before we got to 2023 is so we gave it a grade. But the whole point of what we're doing is trying to break down the effectiveness of the rebuild. I don't think we touched on that enough. So I guess what I want to start off with is 2022. Let's put aside the fact that I don't think quite that much of a rebuild was necessary, but where do you, I guess, grade wise or just overall thoughts wise,
You
how
keep
well did
adding
Ryan Poles set us up for success for a rebuild?
you keep adding that qualifier that you don't think that there needed to be a rebuild
And
when you
and
know
and we
when
we
you
got
know
into
your
that. We got
co-host.
into
I know.
we got into that
I
last week, so we don't have to
which
talk
is
about
why
it.
I need no
I'm
well,
I'm granting it was necessary. I'm granting. I'll pretend it. I thought it was necessary. How did you think he
okay. So,
set us up for success?
I mean, he did the easy part that year. I that was
Right.
the first year was nothing but tearing down. And I think
Yeah.
we need to recognize that. I think we needed something we didn't. I'm glad you're calling this out because we didn't call out the fact that there was no build happening. There was just tear down happening that year. So while we look at
Yeah.
some of the free agency moves that were made, um, we shouldn't have had very high expectations considering what that year really was. That's why I kind of look back at some people are like, well, this is year 2 of the rebuild, right? Last year. This is year 3 of the rebuild. Well, it's really the second year of the build, right? Like we're not 3 years into Ryan Poles doing effective moves. We're 2 years into Ryan Poles doing effective moves to build like effectively building the team up with a
Yeah,
year of
the rebuild's
effectively
the whole
tearing down.
thing. Year 1 is the teardown, year 2 and
2
3
and
are now the
3.
builds. In total, it's a rebuild.
Yeah, in total, it's a rebuild, but we shouldn't be looking at it as he's had 3 years to build this team. Oh, no, this is his 2nd year of building the team up, guys.
So, yeah, I was just gonna say, again, it was the easy part, tearing it down,
Yep,
and this is stuff we already hit on, but I just I don't want it to get lost that that this is the point we're doing this, is evaluating the rebuild itself, not just kinda dryly summarizing the
yep,
offseason.
and let me
From
be
that
clear here,
standpoint,
effectiveness, you wanna talk about effectiveness of tearing down? Pretty damn effective. I mean, we are down to bare bolts at this point coming into
yeah,
this
well,
offseason
this is stuff we already hit on, but, like, if I were to
outside the
assign it a
Claypool move.
grade, it's gonna be higher grades than what you know, summed up last week, which we just kinda summed up his offseason performance. His grade is like a general manager in general, but in terms of, like, tearing it down, I'll say, God, it makes the Claypool even worse. It makes the Claypool move look even more inexplicable when you look at it through, like, we're tearing the whole thing down. Why did you add I get it, he was young, but, like, there wasn't any world in which that second round pick wasn't gonna be more valuable than, like,
I think
you know what I mean? I it's just I
we
it just
shouldn't I
so
don't wanna spend too
that's
much
what
time.
docks it. Everything else
I
is
don't wanna
fine.
spend too much time on Claypool, but I here's the excuse that I give towards it. He succumbed to the pressure from the fan base and the reporters of and the news media, get Justin Fields help. Don't succumb to the pressure of any of us. We don't know shit. I mean, I'm gonna be clear here. We don't know shit. So if it really was, and if I'm right, I think he might have learned a lesson from that. Um, you didn't need to. You should have, kept the ship going the way that you had it going. The way that it was already pointed was and as we know now with hindsight, I would honestly say the correct way to go about it. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, Justin Fields literally had no help. But he was succumbing to that pressure of, "Holy shit, we've got no weapons." Like our best wide receiver is Darnell Mooney, who just got injured, I believe, at that point of the trade, if I'm not mistaken. And we have literally nobody around for Justin Fields to throw to, and we can't.
Yeah.
He's actually producing some offense. So let's see what can happen if we give him something to actually pass to.
Yeah. Nah, yeah, I mean, the logic makes sense, but I mean, I don't even know if I wanna go that far.
It does.
I
It
see
does.
it I see
I
it, but
give.
it's like,
I'm playing with a knife right now, by the way, as we're talking about this, because it does.
hell
I
yeah,
mean,
man. Knives are
and
awesome.
it was just on my desk, but I'm gonna pretend like it's because Jerry Rig everything knife, by the way. Highly
You
recommend.
you ever,
Good little box cutter.
you ever stab a guy with one of those fuckers?
I don't know if this is a box cutting knife, bro. So I don't know if I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was
hold
gonna
on, hold
say,
on.
man, if you stab someone, it's a really effective way to,
To go to
cause
jail.
them physical pain. Oh, I don't know. I've
I
never been
mean,
in jail.
Have you stabbed somebody with one? Here's my other one.
Nah, I've never stabbed anybody with a knife.
I haven't had a
I just
knife.
wanted to get into knife. I just wanted to get into knife talk.
They're very useful. They're very useful around the house. I'll say that. Anyway,
Anyway, yeah. To sum that up, overall, an effective job. Did what you needed to do. If you're going to rebuild, tear everything down. By the end of the season, we had nothing, almost nothing that wasn't going to help us going forward,
yeah,
more or less.
but now we were missing basically what ends up turning into Joey Porter Jr., who I mean, we end up grabbing Tyreek Stevenson instead, but I
Well,
think we would.
we're
Okay, come on, bro. There are no spoilers. Come
I
on.
know,
I
but it's
know
we're
we can
going
evaluate
chronologically.
we can talk about it without evaluating it. We'll evaluate it as we go chronologically. I just want to bring this up. Obviously, that pick turns into Joey Porter Jr. That sucks. So there is, and that could have been a lot of other things. Let's not forget it didn't have to
Yeah, I
be
have
Joey Porter Jr.
I have a point to make about that.
Yeah,
Is a
we'll
part
get
of
it.
it.
We'll get into it. But that
We
that
weren't going
is
to take
something that
Joey
I will
Porter
say.
Jr.
Huh? Yeah. Well, that's it. Anyway, let's just say, yeah, it does make that Chase Claypool trade suck even fucking more. I'm gonna go back to every GM makes a mistake. It's how you learn from it, and we'll get into how he learned from that mistake and what he did to move off of it quickly.
It's
So
fine.
let's
We're
get
being
started.
tough graders. I
Yeah.
want to hit on one more thing, and it does not require extensive commentary.
Yes.
But
But it's gonna have it because
the
it's us.
one kind of important, well, the one kind of important thing I missed is that there was a UDFA class. Polls I've noticed is a little weird about his UDFA's. Never signs very many names that I recognize.
Hmm?
But the one name he signed that year was a name I did recognize, and it turns out he's pretty awesome. We got Jack Sanborn. So
Edward's awesome. I love Edward. I got
yeah,
nothing else to
so
say.
a nice
Actually, that is a
UDFA
move
signer.
we. Yeah, that is a move we completely forgot to talk about.
It's worth
Um,
mentioning. UDFA's are hard to remember.
yeah.
And again, he's got kind of a weird way about him where he signs a bunch of guys out of like small schools where it's like I do not know who this is. Like I could have named you like 500 people eligible for this draft. I do not know who any of these guys are.
Yeah.
But he was nice in my
Uh,
opinion.
I'll say this, as a as somebody who loves watching linebackers, who played linebacker in high school for well, not just high school, but going back several years of playing linebacker. Um, I love watching Sanborn. I think instinctually he's a fantastic player. I think his instincts, and I've talked about this before, his instincts make up for his athletic traits. He's his ability to read and react to things so quickly make up for the ticks that he loses, you know, as an athlete. Um,
Yeah. All right, so let's get into 2023. I'm gonna call this decision 1A.
mm,
Decision 1A is we have the first pick. Are we sure we want to trade this? And that decision ends up being yes.
question for you, hypothetically speaking, because everyone thinks that we would have picked Stroud. So I got two questions for you. Texans have the first pick. Who do they pick? Bears keep the first pick. Who do they pick?
So I did an alternate reality where I do think if the Texans had not had that thrown that Hail Mary, it does seem like they probably still would have taken Stroud.
Really?
And if we had the number 2 pick, I think so.
From my understanding, I can't remember who I was listening to. From my understanding, it would have been Bryce either way.
Here's the thing. I don't know shit about I barely know shit when I'm making a mock draft. Like I certainly am not going to know shit about like what they would have done had
Mm,
this or that happened. So like it's all a guess, but it's like they did take Stroud. Then they liked Stroud so much that but they also liked Will Anderson so much that they then made a crazy trade that maybe worked out, certainly worked out in year one,
mm.
to move up and get Will Anderson. I like if I don't know. It just seems like Stroud was so necessary, but Anderson was also so necessary that they have to do these two things in tandem. Where I don't know. My read on it is just they loved
My
Stroud,
argument
and most people loved Stroud. I mean,
my argument is they loved Will Anderson and they needed a quarterback, and we don't know which quarterback it would have been if both were available. Like that's I don't know how we can argue. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think me, I was defending Stroud in that draft class
yeah, I
very
guess for
much,
me, we
but
can go in circles. We can go in circles about it.
yeah, I'm just
Both ways
curious.
make sense. But if you reframe it to say that the trade up was for Stroud and not Anderson, then that is how much they liked Stroud. Would they have given all
I
that for
hate that.
Bryce Young? I don't know.
I hate that reframe. I think that reframe, you already have the pick for the quarterback. You don't need to trade up.
But they did
But
trade. But no, I'm not. This is you're saying the reframe is in the way that the Texans fans
I know, I know, I know, I know, I
defended
know,
at the time.
I know.
But you could easily reframe it to say, we have to take Anderson. What will we give for Stroud? That was what they'll give for Stroud, what they actually did get for Anderson. It's the same thing. It's just swapping the picks. So would they have given all that for Bryce Young? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with the reframe. I'm just not gonna get there. Let's keep going. I
The
just
reframe is inarguable. The point I'm making is not. The reframe is inarguably correct.
the reframe of saying that I already have the pick to get this quarterback, so all this that I'm trading up for Will Anderson is for the quarterback is
Well, I
incorrect.
guess if you're gonna,
Correct?
I guess
Sorry.
if you're gonna misunderstand it and go straight back to the way that the Texans used to defend the pick,
But
then
that's
no,
exactly
you're
what the
never gonna
reframe
agree
is,
with
and
it.
that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it?
We're reframing it for a different purpose.
We're not a Texans podcast. I'm gonna fucking table this. Okay? We're not a Texans podcast. I'm tabling this.
Well,
Let's
I
move
don't
on. If the
misunderstanding my
Bears
point.
kept the number one pick, who are they picking?
I don't know. At the time, it seemed like Bryce Young, but I don't know.
So at the time, let's
It
remember.
seemed it kind of seemed just like just through like Twitter bullshit. It just kind of seemed like the most work they were doing seemed to be on Bryce Young.
Yep.
That it seemed like they met with him at the combine probably, and probably the same with Stroud. But then Stroud was like, "Yeah, I met," and I was like, "Don't draft me. This is JF's team."
Yeah, I don't. Oh yeah, that's right. That's our comment was awesome. Here's what I'll say.
I wish he hadn't said that. I wish he had convinced them to draft him.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I don't think there's going to be a year two decline, like because some people may say is possible. I mean, it's possible. It always is possible. The way that he plays quarterback is just leaps and bounds beyond what you would expect a rookie to. He does play
He'll
like a
he'll
veteran.
he'll throw more interceptions because he only threw
Yeah,
5 last year, and that was crazy. But like in terms of
yeah.
actual
There
quality of play,
was,
like nah, he looks real.
yeah, yeah. There was some interception luck. I will agree with that. There was a ton of interception luck too that was helping those numbers. Excuse me. But that doesn't pull away from the fact that he's still a fantastic quarterback. Even if
Yeah.
that interception luck flipped a little bit, he still has been a fantastic quarterback. I think that will continue based off of how he looks on film. Moving
Yeah.
on with
So
the
do you?
Bears, I don't know. I don't know. I would think that they would have gone quarterback. I don't think it's smart to it sucks when a number one pick honestly is used on anything but a quarterback. And in that draft class, I can't think of anyone that was really worth. I mean, Will Anderson, maybe retrospect, but going into it, I can't think of a single prospect that was worth the number one pick that was a non-quarterback at that time
I
that we
mean,
would have said was
I
there
mean
wasn't a
Jalen
Marvin Harrison.
Carter. The
Yeah,
Jalen Carter's a whole other thing, but
that's a
yeah.
whole other
Um,
story. That's a whole other
yeah.
story.
But no, I. So when I say the decision to trade the number one pick, I'm obviously saying the
The
decision
decision to
to
keep
take a
Justin Fields.
quarterback or not.
Yep.
Now, knowing that it was not a decision this year, I guess my question is like, so it worked out for the best, unless you want to argue that we would have taken Stroud and maybe
Well,
it
hold
didn't.
on.
But
Let's revisit our mindset real quick. At that time, Justin Fields had produced probably the best offense that we've seen in I don't know a decade. Probably when was it 2013 and that was 2023. Yeah, basically a decade of Bears football. The best offense we've seen in about a decade, right?
I
Since
the
the
best
Jay Cutler.
the best quarterback performance. I'll say that.
I mean, we were scoring 30 something points. Yeah, it was strictly based off. I don't want to say quarterback performance. It was strictly based off of running. And
He was the
Justin Fields'
quarterback and he was
ability
performing all
to
that running.
run.
Yeah.
Yes, to run the ball. I'm not going to say quarterbacking. It was obviously unsustainable. It was obvious that it was unsustainable. However, considering where a lot of how a lot of fans felt about Justin Fields coming out, I'm not going to say the league, how a lot of fans felt about Justin Fields coming out, we all expected, hey, if you can add some support around him so that because it was absolutely there was a nothing. There's nothing. If you can add some support around him so that there is some semblance of a passing game, can this running game help supplement and allow him to become that next, like take that next leap? That's where we were all at. I want to make sure that we had that mindset at that time. I would have told you You do not trade Justin Fields. You build around him, trade the pick, get a haul, etc. Right? I think
Yeah,
you were in agreement. I think we both
yeah.
agreed. And a lot of analytically smart people said Justin Fields isn't the quarterback. You guys should look to move on, etc. I think
Yeah,
you and I,
I'm gonna.
really quickly, you had sent me a text message going into that offseason saying, hey, we're going to see a lot of people that we like and we agree with say some things that we're not going to like or agree with when it comes to Justin Fields.
That's true. Yeah.
Let's do ourselves a favor and not send those things to each other because it's not going to be a fun offseason. And it wasn't. And actually, the past two off seasons have not been fun for very obvious reasons.
Uh, okay, disagree there, but I don't know if we're gonna get to 2024. This was a wonderful offseason.
Not before the trade. Not for me before the trade, but we'll pretend
Well,
like
I
the
knew we were
alt-right
gonna. I
Chicago
knew we
Bears.
were gonna do the right thing. You were the one who
I
was reading all the dumbasses.
no. I knew we were gonna do the right thing. I just couldn't deal with the alt-right. This is like pretending. Sorry, the alt-right of the Chicago Bears fan base. I knew we were gonna do what we did. It's just not fun being gaslit into thinking that's not the right thing. We'll get there.
I'll say I like that the alt right of the Chicago Bears fan base has such love for a young black man. That's way different than the real alt right.
That's very
You got to
true.
give him credit there.
Yeah, we'll give him some credit there.
No, so yeah, I remember saying that. I remember tossing and turning, being afraid that the Bears would make what I thought would be the wrong decision. And taking Bryce and trading Fields after the season the Fields had just had. I think you're giving us a little too much credit in saying like, this was obviously unsustainable. Like, yeah, the running a little bit, but like we also were a little bit blind to the fact that he probably was not going to grow as much as a passer as we thought. Like we would not hear of the idea of not going in with Justin Fields.
Hold on. I did say that the running itself was unsustainable. I clarified and said we thought that if you could take a step as a passer and get league acceptable passing, that would
Yeah,
supplement it and make it at an
no,
acceptable / sustainable level of play. Yeah,
understood.
to
But I
clarify
guess
my point.
what I'm going to say is we absolutely thought it was going to like there was almost no doubt in our minds that was
Oh
going to
yeah,
happen.
oh
It
yeah.
was like
At that
in
time,
the
yeah.
deepest depths of our mind was like, what if he doesn't grow as a passer? But then everything else was like, of course he's going to grow as a passer. He was the most accurate college passer like ever. Like,
Yeah,
shit like that.
I did start preparing myself pretty early though for what we had seen. But
I
let's
mean, I
keep going.
remember watching him as a rookie against the Steelers, and that was like his best game. And like looking, like rewatching that tape, and like in the back of my mind, being like, this isn't really that impressive. His best throw, he clearly made the wrong read. Okay, fine, fair enough. Some good throws, but whatever.
I haven't rewatched it. I have not rewatched all 22 of that game, so I'm
But
just not going to comment on it. But yeah,
it was a couple years ago. I mean, but yeah, point is we're both fooling ourselves a little bit, not unwarranted, and ultimately Poles makes the same decision. And my question is, so Poles comes in and does nothing to support Justin Fields with his tear down, doesn't do anything to build the offense back up even a little bit until Claypool. My question is, do you find it at all weird that Poles, I guess, went into this 2023 offseason and makes the decision, this guy who I clearly was not tied to because I didn't try to do anything to support him, he is the quarterback. I am going to trade the number one pick. This guy deserves another year. Isn't that a little bit incongruous to you? Like, doesn't that seem a little weird in hindsight?
no, because I think here's the difference. I had no ammunition the year before, and I would have been straining myself to support him, right? And I agree with that. That viewpoint is exactly where I was saying, "Oh, reallocate the funds to the offense." Before, I knew you would be straining yourself to do so, right? So the year before was, I'm going to be straining myself to do this and potentially make some wrong decisions, right? Versus this year where it's I have the funds to do what I need to. I have the resource, not just the funds, but really the resources, right? The draft picks. We have a number one pick. We have the number one overall fucking pick, which is a lot in draft assets. But on top of that, we have a first round pick, right? I have the assets to do this, and I have the assets to do this without making a dumb decision, right? Let me go ahead and do that. Now, let's also remember during the trade with Carolina, there's a chance that we don't get DJ Moore and we instead get um blanking on
Derek Brown most likely, but Brian
no,
Burns'
there
name had been there.
Brian
But Derek
Burns.
Brown was the name that was. Those are the two names. DJ Moore and Derek Brown are the two names that
Yep,
were
really floated.
in there.
Yep. I think there was a push to get Brian Burns as well. Um during
Yeah,
those trade talks,
definitely, but I think ultimately it came down to
I
to
think
Brown or Moore.
Carolina shut that down, right? So also on top of that, yes, we got DJ Moore to help support Justin Fields, but there's an alternate reality where we have Derek Brown or, Carolina says, "Yeah, sure, we'll entertain Brian Burns on this trade."
Sure,
So I
it's
also
all the same. They're all
yeah, I
both
don't
good
know.
defensive players.
Yep, I don't know if the decision was strictly we're going to help support Justin Fields this year, or if the decision was based off of what can I get with these assets? I'm still making the right decisions with these assets, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just think so. Poles said it this offseason and last offseason that we'd have to be blown away to, you know, replace Fields more or less. I don't know. I just sometimes I think about it and I think, was he blown away was he just not blown away by Stroud or Young? And if he was not blown away by Stroud, I then have to say you kind of fucked up. As a
Oh,
quarterback evaluator, come on.
no,
We're allowed to
no.
use hindsight,
You
Adam.
are, but not when everyone at the time didn't feel blown away by Stroud. Come on, dude.
I
Like,
specifically did not like Stroud. I'm using hindsight. That's the
and
point.
I specifically defended Stroud. And as one of the defenders, I can tell you that I was defending him from a stance I wasn't even all that blown away. He
You're
was a
you're
fantastic
taking you're
quarterback, one of
taking
the
a
most
small you're
okay.
taking a small point. You keep doing this actually. You're taking a small portion of my point and fixating on it. It is true that if he was not blown away by CJ Stroud, I'm not saying that the mistake is indefensible. I'm
There
not
was
even
a
saying it's a
reason.
mistake considering how things went. But considering what CJ Stroud is, he probably should have been blown away by him, right?
So I want two things. One, there's a reason why I asked you if the Texans would have still taken Stroud. I don't know if they were. They would have. I personally, and I want to say it was. I don't want to misquote somebody, which is why it was one of the podcasts that I listened to that says I know for a fact that the Texans would have taken Bryce Young. And I want to say it was either Bucky Brook or it was either that podcast, Move the Sticks, or another one. And I listen to as reputable people as possible. I don't listen to fucking Mikey Cousin, Bear Down, whatever the fuck, right? I listen to reputable people who have
Uh-huh.
sources. So when I hear one of them say, I know for a fact, I don't care what they say, they would have taken Stroud at the number one pick. I think that tells you where the evaluations were at the time. And I can't look in hindsight and say that my GM should have been better than the other 32 GMs and seen it differently when it sounds like, for the most part, a lot of GMs were going Bryce Young, including the one
I
that takes CJ Stroud.
I understand,
That's
and
all I'm saying, and this comes from somebody who thinks
this is the part where I think you're taking a slightly offhanded comment
yeah.
and
Nope,
turning it
and
into something way more than what it is. In
now
hindsight,
I'm gonna come off
every
to the second
GM
point.
every GM should have been blown away by CJ
That's fair,
Stroud
that's
in
fair. I'm gonna
hindsight.
come to the second point. I don't agree with that. Why? I think Stroud knew in the offense, and I made this point specifically during draft season. Stroud was on an offense where he did not need to create. You look and in the NFL, you want a quarterback that creates. His biggest ding was a question mark, can he create? The only time we got to see it was against Georgia. Why? Stroud knew he didn't need to. Like it I think that is evident in his gameplay that
I'll step in to go. I'll
every time they ran a read option, what did he do? He handed the ball off. Every single time he ran a read option, he said, "Oh, the edge is crashing. I'm supposed to keep it. Ah, fuck it. Here, take it." Why? He was saving his body. I don't think he felt like he needed to create in that offense, and that's why he didn't. And it's kind of hard as an evaluator sitting there and saying, well, this is an opportunity for you to do that, right? For you to use your legs, for you to create space, for you to do more than what you're doing within this offense, and you're not doing it. Yes, you're winning, right? You're blowing these people out, but the
Yeah.
opportunities are there, so it's really hard to evaluate someone like that. Can I be
I've
completely
been
honest
I've
with
been
you?
evaluating college players since before I had pubes. I get it. I know I understand. I'm not saying anybody should have seen it. I'll even go so far to say CJ Stroud did have a couple other games where he was forced to create and he looked fucking horrible, and that's why I didn't like him. Against
Mhm.
Michigan, he had times where he had to create and he looked like he lost so much zip whenever he had to move outside the pocket. And the reason the Georgia game was so jarring, I was like, I've never seen him do anything like this before. So I'm
That was
gonna
fun though,
upgrade
man.
him a little bit. I still am gonna trust what I saw against Michigan. He can't do this. That he
That
can't
was
do
some
it
of the best
consistently.
quarterbacking I think I've seen was that game.
Yeah.
But no, so
So
like when you
again,
make
we
the
were
point
wrong.
that
And
he,
again, I'm not saying anybody should have. I'm just saying in
oh yeah, they fucked
hindsight,
up. In hindsight, they fucked up, but
yeah.
completely. I'm not gonna,
In the same way that 31 teams, 198 picks fucked up on Tom Brady.
yeah,
Not in the same way because it's not that crazy to take the leap from the first number one pick to the number two pick and say, hey, the number two pick is actually pretty good. We should draft him. But it's the same thing. Just in hindsight, they
yeah,
probably
sure,
should have been blown away by Stroud. That said, I do believe they were not blown away by either quarterback. Genuinely, were not blown away by either
yeah,
quarterback. Neither quarterback was flawless in the way that made you want to move on from Fields. I'm just saying
yeah.
I find it a little curious that they went into the previous offseason clearly not committed to Fields. And then when the first chance they have the number one overall pick, it
They
strikes
commit
me
to Fields.
as risky. It could have gone a lot worse than it did to trade the number one pick. Now,
I mean, yes, because there's a lot of luck, and we'll get into the luck that we've gotten on this rebuild. But I will say this: the reason why I wanted to push back on that point is because I see a lot of Bears fans criticize polls for not taking Stroud. And I mean, I agree with you. In hindsight, yes, dumb move. Should have done it. Should have done it in hindsight. But at the time, I don't know how you have to use foresight, right? And what you knew at the time to actually criticize a GM on what they should or should not have done at that time because you only have the information you have to make a decision at the time of the decision. So the only reason I'm pushing back is because I'm pushing back against all the other voices, maybe not you, but all the other voices who use that and say, well, Pohl sucks as a GM. That's
yeah,
it.
I thought the Texans made a bad pick taking Stroud second. You don't have to convince me of that.
I
There
was
are other
all for
people.
that.
Yeah, they say some dumb shit, but you
I
don't
was
have
all
to
for
convince
that.
me.
You and I have argued about the Will Anderson trade. I still think that it takes years for a trade like that to affect you because it takes years for those picks to have been made. And yeah, sure, you get the high impact immediately, but I can't wait to see what happens to that team's depth due to trading away. What was it, like 3 picks, 4 picks,
Right.
all very high picks.
Now you're
But
the one trying to turn it into a Texans podcast.
yeah, I know, but we'll get in. We won't actually. We won't get into that.
At least my thing tangentially had to do with the Bears.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I'm just that whole draft, that draft. I Can I just say this? Like this last draft was cake. That draft when it happened was not. It was honestly one of the most fun drafts I think I've ever watched. This draft though was better as a Bears fan for obvious reasons. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's pull back. Let's come back. We spent a lot of time on this one decision.
So the decision has been made to make the trade. The trade itself is to the Carolina Panthers. They trade the first overall pick. They get the 9th pick back. They get DJ Moore. As we mentioned, it seemed like there were a few different player names being thrown out there. Seems like they eventually settled on DJ Moore. We could talk
Mhm.
about whether that was the correct player to get in hindsight. I don't know. They also get the 61st pick in the second round of the 2023 draft, the 2025 second round pick, and a 2024 first round pick. You know, the Panthers have the number one pick. They were not really that bad last season. So there's a chance that might become a top 10 pick in 2024. Who knows? We'll find out.
Uh, so DJ Moore. Let's start out there.
Yeah.
At the time, I think we were all ecstatic, and I think he's. I mean, he fucking 1,300 yards. A lot of it on Yak. I mean, I've done the numbers. The amount of like yak produced per even route run is insane.
A lot of yak, but a lot of when JF got him the ball down the field, some truly showed some truly impressive downfield chops. I would say every single thing that DJ Moore did. I've always been a DJ Moore fan. I consider him a top 18ish receiver, and then this year I was like, oh, this dude is borderline top 10, maybe firmly top 10. I'm not gonna list them all out, but
I think
like
I had him.
He showed more skills in every respect than I ever thought I saw.
Yeah, I think I had
when he
him
was Carolina.
in the top 16. This isn't like an AJ Brown move, right? But so I mean, he's a number one wide receiver. JTO, I'm sorry, I don't care what you say. He's a number one wide receiver. I mean, he can. I didn't understand that.
JTO's doing some weird combination of trolling and I don't know.
Yeah,
still love him, but like
love him to death. But I didn't understand that at all.
No longer to death, but
the
he's just trying to piss people off and stick to his priors. And
I mean,
you gotta come on.
Yeah, to be fair though, he's also been absolutely treated like shit by some Bears fans since his
That's why if he's just trolling, then bravo, they deserve it.
Yep. But bringing back, no, I mean, I was it the right player to pick out of the players there? I would say so. I mean, what we needed at the time, we needed everything, but I do think that you know me, I'm going to lean wide receiver over. I'm going to lean offense specifically over defense on anything.
Well, I'm gonna let you talk about this because I don't have as firm of thoughts on this as you do, but
I don't know if I have firm thoughts about this. Are we talking about the contract coming up?
Well, you brought it up at all.
Yep.
You asked me if I would extend DJ Moore
right now,
and yeah, and I think my answer was no. Let him play out the season. He's still got 2 years left on his deal. Why extend him right now?
I specifically asked that because I see a lot of Bears fans say, well, extend him now because the cost of wide receiver, I mean, they're right. The cost in wide receiver has gone up dramatically. It was going to go up before you got an extension into extension talks because we're so early in it with DJ Moore anyway, because all these deals were going to happen before a DJ Moore deal happened. I think now with Justin Jefferson being completed, you're not looking at a raising, you're not looking at the market raising that much from when we're going to do it. So whatever. But I do think there are a lot of Bears fans that say extend him now. And I look at a lot of Bears fans and I say, let's talk about Allen Robinson and what happens to non-top 5 guys when they start to age and how they fall off a cliff.
When a drop off can happen, it can happen hard.
It's a stark drop off. It's not a, but he's young, and this is I come back to, and the reason why I ask is because I don't know, because he's still very young. Like, I think in his second contract, he'll be in his 28th, 29th, and 30th year. Like, he'd be looking at an extension. I think at the oldest, the extension would take him into like his 31st season if it's like a 3-year deal. I want to say his 31st year during that season. I would need to double check. And at that point, I'm not as worried. And so I think there's less risk, but it's early. Let him play out another year. Let's see what age does. Let's see if there are injuries that could happen. There's a lot that goes into it other than I like this guy. I want to keep him. Let's fucking go. So yeah, there is something to talking about how many years are we going to get from DJ Moore potentially.
Right. So yeah, that brings my question. Maybe you've already answered it, but what the question actually is did it make more sense to get a receiver who in his first year, while great, I loved watching it, and that's a big part of being a sports fan, did absolutely nothing to help us get any closer to contender status. This year, nothing he does is going to get us any closer to contender status, most likely. So he will not help the 20. He will almost certainly not let the 2024 Bears help the 2024 Bears win the Super Bowl.
You're specifically talking about
by 2025, we're going to be we're maybe at the point at the first point of could this guy drop off? Could it be an Allen Robinson situation where it's like maybe we just do let this guy walk, or like maybe we tag him once. Basically, we traded for what is going to possibly be. I think we're going to ultimately extend him, and I'm not too worried that he's going to have a steep drop off anytime soon. But there's a world in which we acquired him for one useful season of his career.
I want to
Was
clarify.
that correct? Is what I'm getting at.
He's currently 27. So going into the extension, he'd be starting it at 29. So it'd be if it's a 3-year deal, right? Because it's 27, 28 on his last 2 years, right? He just turned 27, so it'd be 27, 28. And then he would be 29, 30, which I'm trying to figure out where my camera is. 30, 31, right? So I was right that 31 would be there, but we're also talking about the first year in which you'd probably see a decline, the year that's usually off a cliff for wide receivers at the age of 30 and then 31. It's rare for guys to be like, I don't know, Devontae Adams, who's still doing it at a very high level, right?
Yeah.
Typically, you see more like a Nuke Hopkins who starts to see a lot of injuries. And we're talking about the elite guys too. These are the guys that I feel more comfortable giving deals. Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams. Those are rare. You usually see more of a Nuke
Yeah.
Hopkins, which is like, holy crap, this guy's just getting injured. He can't keep up. His body's starting to tear down. It's over. Tyreek Hill, again, rare. We're talking about like, I don't know.
I think Tyreek just turned 30. This might be the year that we start to see Tyreek fall off a cliff.
I don't see any. I just don't see the chance of regression with how good he was this past year. But yeah, it could be.
But
It's a clip.
that's the thing.
That's the thing.
You don't see it. I'm
Yeah,
not worried about DJ Moore through age 31, but like I probably would have said the same thing about Allen Robinson, and that would have been wrong. So I
yeah.
don't.
I
It's
think
just I mean it's devil's advocate stuff here. It's just we're breaking down because nobody in the world is going to say like it's
you can't.
uninteresting to just be like, yeah, we got DJ Moore, he was awesome. Like, you know, we got Khalil Mack. Nobody minded Khalil Mack at that time, but like in hindsight, you could make the argument that that was not the best long-term thing for the Bears at all. It didn't
Yep.
amount to a Super Bowl. It amounted to one good year out of the Bears, and then the very next year, the fact that our roster was not as good as the 12-4 would have led you to believe kind of just made the rest of Mack's tenure with us kind of useless. So
Yeah, you could go back and forth on that.
that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I see that. I would ask you. I mean, if pass rushers typically age better, the closer you are to the ball, the longer your career. Like, so the closer you are to the center, right? The closer you are to the ball in
Yeah.
formation, the longer your career tends to go because the less finesse you are as a player, you rely on as a player, right? The less you rely on specifically twitchy traits that go quickly and can lead the more likely you are to be injury resilient. I don't know. I mean, trenches get hurt all the time, but they typically can bounce back from the injuries that they accrue. So
Yeah.
it's
So
hard. It's a hard decision. I don't know. I can't. This is one where like I'm glad you're bringing it up. I'm glad we're getting the conversation out there. I don't think there's an answer, man. I just don't because I don't know. I need another year, right? I need to see how he
yeah.
looks at the end of this year. And based off of how he looks at the end of this year, I'm going to be strong one way or the other. Extend AR. The 2 years before we extend AR, I was all for extend AR. The year before extend AR, like right before he was going to need to get on a deal, I was completely against it because what I saw his second to last season was diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Then his franchise tag, I was staunchly against it because it was obvious at that point. But it wasn't obvious that before that. I think I need another year of play to see,
Yeah.
hey, I'm starting to see some regression. This is where we might be falling off a cliff very soon.
Yeah. So yeah, just to answer my own question. I think he did just have the best year of his career. He is still currently young enough. And I think with the benefit of hindsight, knowing what we have coming into this season, you know, that he's going to be there supporting our new quarterback. I would say like I'm spoiling things. Uh, Knowing that he's going to be supporting Caleb Williams is important enough to me that like I am glad that they got DJ Moore. But I think gun to my head, I think, you know, 5 years from now we might be saying, damn, if Derek Brown was who we could have gotten instead, we probably should have gotten Derek Brown.
Kevin, you can't
But
spoil things, man. All of these things already happened. If you want to talk a little bit about the future, we can. We just don't need to talk about how those moves specifically happened.
that's why I caught myself.
But yeah, no, but you make a good point there that I want to come back to is for the sake of Caleb Williams, probably the right move because I want these 3 receivers. You look at some of the best quarterbacks and what they had starting out and the support that they had starting out. I think having a good supporting system is what allows them to get comfortable in the NFL so that they can start to build that Rolodex of defenses that they've seen, et cetera, so that they can make the right decisions so that as the supporting cast around them starts to decline, they're already good enough to now support the supporting cast around them that needs that support.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of in hindsight now, even if the contract doesn't come, I still think DJ Moore is the right move because I think having the support around your quarterback is more important, in my opinion.
Yeah. So
Because
yeah,
the
just
value that
I
that
think
leads to Caleb Williams will lead to us winning a Super Bowl potentially in the future. So
yeah. So I think yeah, just grades wise at the time, I think I was like A minus on it just because I had some truly, crazy pie in the sky, thoughts of what that number one pick could get us in a trade. And it maybe felt like a future first round pick short of like what I thought was the absolute like pinnacle of what could have happened. Um so yeah, that was like maybe A minus at the time. And then now that we know what we know now, I don't want to do any spoilers, but it's an A plus 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 plus. But
okay.
again, I don't want to reveal why it's an A plus 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 plus.
There is no such thing as spoilers.
Don't
God
spoil it.
damn it. Um,
There are people
uh,
listening to this back in 2023 that don't know what happens.
is that how this works?
I think
If I put the year 2023, does this get posted in the year 2023?
I
If this goes in the
genuinely
title?
in my genuinely in my head that must be what I'm thinking when I'm like hesitant to like say the current Bears players or something.
So yeah, when we have Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, uh, it's nice to also have a DJ Moore, especially when your quarterback is a rookie quarterback like Caleb Williams. Did I spoil shit? I'm sorry.
Roma Dunze, the
Who's that?
the guy who was going to go in the second round if he had entered this year out of Washington,
Yeah, yeah, that guy.
Ronald Reagan, the actor.
Yeah, yeah, that guy. Anyway,
Wow.
coming back,
Oh,
coming back, coming back.
you should not have missed the back. I don't even like Back to the Future, but that's an A plus reference.
I've never seen Back to the Future in
Damn.
its
Well,
entirety.
it's whatever.
Um,
A guy
I'm a
goes Back
terrible
to the
person.
Future,
Hmm.
but who's the
Uh,
president? He goes Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, the actor.
that's good. Uh,
Um, let's get to free agency. So we've got DJ Moore. We're thinking, okay, maybe we're gonna really start adding. Um, maybe I think we both. Well, we wanted Jacoby Myers before we knew that DJ Moore was a possibility.
I
But
still would have taken Jacoby Myers on top of DJ Moore, though. Come on,
we're
man. And
certainly
I think,
thinking
but I think he's proven
yeah.
with next to Devontae Adams, we were right to want Jacoby Myers pretty badly that free agency.
Oh,
We're
for
both.
sure.
That was, I
Jacoby's a
think,
good
our
player.
yeah. I think that
But
was
yeah,
the
we
one wide
definitely
receiver. It was a shitty wide receiver free agency. Let's pull back to DJ Moore was a huge ad because you weren't going to be able to add a wide receiver in neither the draft. Like the draft, what
yeah.
I have Tank Dell Love. I had Tank Dell Love going into that draft, and I had Zay Flowers Love,
Well, the guys were
and
Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston.
it was not
Yeah,
the same wide
it
receiver
was it
draft
was a
class
weak
as this
receiver
past
draft
one.
for sure.
Yep. So
Um,
the
and that's something that Pulse has shown.
a tendency
Planning
towards
ahead, planning ahead, knowing what this draft is going to
he
yield. It
does
seems
a
like
very
that's
good
part of
job
his
of
thought
looking.
process for sure.
Yeah, he does a very good job of looking at draft class ahead. At least, even
Um,
like I think he not just the next draft class, but the class after to understand what can be addressed and what cannot be. They do a
Okay,
good job
so
there.
free agent day, we're excited. We've been doing podcast episodes that I still think you need to nuke off the face of the earth, but we've done some podcast episodes talking about possible targets. Like maybe we can JF continues to be good. Like we absolutely could be a wild card team. Let's add some shit. And you were a little more hesitant, a little less gung ho than I was, but you weren't against adding some real good
I
players
mean,
for the right price.
I'm always going to be hesitant on free agency. I just don't see. I see it as a place where you can add some low value, some role players at low value positions. That's it.
Uh, So first signing I think announced the entire day was TJ Edwards to the Bears for something like 3 years. I don't know, 16, 17 million.
Hold on. Can I just Brad, you're never gonna watch this, but I just want to throw out there. I was right about his valuation, and you were way high on it. And so I just wanna I wanna just
TJ Edwards.
remember.
So that day, that I don't know, but that day had a lot
Well,
of linebacker
to be clear,
contracts that were.
I wasn't right. Jason Fitzgerald was right, who I listened to and said that the linebacker market is either you're up here. I don't know where my hands are. You're up here, or you're in this little mid range of like 12 to something, 8 to 12 million AAV.
And you agree with Jason Fitzgerald. So Jason
Yeah.
Fitzgerald ultimately that day was right because there were two big contracts given out. Uh, one kind of to Bobby Okereke. I think the second biggest linebacker contract given out, and then all the other guys. And we definitely wanted a linebacker. And then when the
I think you
signing
and
when
I were
they
looking at Okereke, specifically.
Okereke was our top target, but then he ended up getting a little more. Well, he ended up getting what we thought he was going to get, or
Yeah.
what I think Brad thought he was going to get. He actually got that contract.
Mhm.
But then there were dudes like David Long, Jermaine Pratt. I can't remember everyone, but it was a really long list of linebackers in that class, and TJ Edwards was definitely one of them that I would have been interested in. And when they signed him, and I saw the number, I was like, "Holy shit, King Poles, let's fucking go!"
It was a great
Awesome
contract.
signing.
I love that signing.
Couldn't
That
believe it.
signing
And then
at
I,
the
I
time,
started thinking like, yeah,
I was gonna say at that time, I think I would have given it an A. Right
oh,
now, you want to talk about A plus 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 plus? That's an A plus 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 signing
yeah,
because I think we're getting
he's
significant value.
even better than I thought. I already thought he
Yeah.
was good, but even better than I thought.
I mean, he made my team when we did the dueling draft. Although I will say, you know who I forgot that I should have added potentially is like Quincy Williams. Should have had the Williams together. And I don't even think I considered Quincy at the
Oh
time.
yeah, when they're together, they have the power up. What's
Yeah, yeah.
the shit? What's
Wonder
this? Isn't that
Twin
like a
powers
video?
activate.
Isn't that like a video game or something where if you put the brothers on the same team, they like boost each other's stats?
I
What the
I
hell
don't
am I
know, but
thinking of?
the only thing I'm thinking of is like Wonder Twin
Backyard
powers.
baseball. Backyard baseball. When
Uh
Ahmed and Amir Khan are on the same team, they become better hitters.
yes. So I would have. I probably should have considered. I want to throw that out there as a retcon, but
Yeah. Oh well, you fucked up.
yeah,
And yet people still think your team's better. Anyway, our second signing that day, I believe, was Nate Davis. He kind of blows, if we're being honest. He's not a disaster, but he kind of blows. Like,
I think you know what it is though. I don't think he's that bad when he's on the field, consistently on the field.
yeah,
The one or two times, two stretches he had of maybe a couple games in a row of being consistently on the field. The issue is he's consistently not playing. That's an issue. I mean, that's just an issue. Like
yeah.
your best
He
ability
just
is availability is such a stupid fucking thing up until you look at guys who aren't available. Up until you look at guys who aren't available.
yeah.
And what am I
It
supposed to do
doesn't
with you? I'm paying you for nothing.
it did him no favors to be next to a rookie, a pretty good rookie on the right side, and the revolving door at center on the other side. Does him no favors, but I remember after seeing that signing, thinking like, okay, this isn't really the guy I would have picked, and also, are we moving Tevin over to the left side? I started overthinking that. The answer just ended up being yes, we are.
Can I make a quick statement?
No.
Real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to everyone who's Olin Kreutz pilled and shit like that. I want to throw this out there. The league doesn't care about centers. Most of the league really just does not give a fuck about the position. It is the lowest paid position outside of running back for a reason. And there's a reason why a lot of teams just rotate whoever the fuck they can there. So I just want to make that since you mentioned center, the league's starting to care about guards more, but they just don't give a shit. So when I see Ryan Poles not give a shit about center because you can deal with one weak link, and if your weak link's a center, that's perfectly fine. It's because the league, if you look at every roster, just does not give a flying fuck. There are very few teams who give a flying fuck about center. Just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, yeah, all right. I don't really have any thoughts. I mean, I
Yeah, I
do, but
mean,
I don't want to. I don't want to say him. Nate Davis. I just want to say when we signed him, the true pass set numbers, removing screens, play action, stuff like that. we're pretty bad, and they remain bad. So
Mm.
I don't think we were gonna end up getting a lot of bang for our buck, but it wasn't a whole lot of bucks anyway. It was like eight
Yeah,
million a year, something like that.
just to give it the letter
Fine.
grade since we're doing it. At the time, I would have given it a B. Right now, it's a D, D minus. Like if he could play, that goes back up. But if he plays this year, that goes back up. At the time, I was like, okay, cool. You got a value guard at the position that we need. Fine. Like a B is
Yeah,
acceptable, right? Like good job. Yeah, 3.0. Let's go. You're a 3.0
yeah. I think
student. Now I'd probably be like, "You're a 1.6, you're failing, let's talk about this. What the fuck is going on? We need to possibly talk about remedial classes."
I think I go C plus at the time, and a lot of it was just the questions that it raised about, why we were moving Tevin Jenkins off right guard after he'd finally shown something. That turned out to be fine. And I don't think I'm going to go all the way down to a D. C minus now. Nothing he did really surprised me. He
Yeah.
just is what he is. He's a good run blocker. He's fine. I'd
No,
rather him be the weak link on the team than our center. I'll say that much.
I will
Like,
say that it's more about the availability that lowers him. If he can show me
yeah,
consistent play, yeah, that like I said, it can go right back up. You can be a
yeah,
C
for
plus
sure.
pretty easily. Just fucking play, please. Just play. Be in the game for the love of God, and just that's it. Practice,
Yeah,
practice. Like
for
in the
sure.
words of Allen Iverson, practice. Except maybe not with the same context. Sorry, go on.
Okay, so now we come to uh, the biggest signing. I want to make sure I have the terms right here, but I believe we signed Tremaine Edmonds to a 4-year, $72 million contract. That had an it looked like it had a it looks like it has an out after 2024.
I hated this deal. I still hate
Our,
this
our
deal.
silence, our silence is what we are certainly our reaction at the time.
Can we skip this one? We've talked about this one so much. And there are a lot of bands that are mad at bands like us because, oh, he's not a value. But look how good it's like, bro. He's had those interceptions and he had those, they were thrown right to him. Like he couldn't have been set up more by the people around him. It's you get rid of some of the luck plays that he saw last year that really changed the narrative around him. And man, you get back to the narrative that was around him right before those luck plays started just getting spammed during a short stretch of the season. Let's be very fucking clear about this. You get rid of those luck plays, and you remember what the narrative was, and it was like, why the hell do we sign him? He's really not done much. Jack Sanborn was a better Mike linebacker when Jack Sanborn played Mike linebacker while Tremaine Edmonds was injured. I said it.
I think
I don't like that deal. I still don't like that deal. Maybe it could turn out to be something. It's only a year in. But
yeah, I'm
typically free agents give you their
desperately
best performance their first year.
just
My
desperately trying to
opinion.
find any sort of different angle on this at all. I will say I I hated it. I think we both give it like a D minus at best at the time, right?
Mhm.
And it's not like it should go up because yeah, he was not very good. Um, I think I'll say I think I kind of have some hopes for him going forward. I think he'd never played Mike in this system necessarily. I can see like the whole point was to put it in Bears terms, like we already have our Hunter Hillenmeyer, a little undrafted, instinctive, strong side linebacker. We just got hopefully our Lance Briggs. Now we need our Urlacher, our super rangy, tall, can play the hole in Tampa too, and like physically that makes sense. Long ass arms, should be able to shed blocks. It just physically it all makes sense. And then he had just put a really good season on tape, especially in coverage. But Jesus, you're seeing like David Long shortly thereafter signed 2 years, 10 million, and he was just as good as Tremaine Edmonds and had a better track record. And it's like
Okereke looks like a stud. Okereke looks like an absolute stud. Like in comparison,
he's better. The reason that we were so on Okereke was that Matt Eberflus coached him his entire life,
What a
or his
it
entire NFL career, I should say.
was an obvious scheme fit, and has played with. Yep, has very good familiarity with the scheme.
So just baffling, and especially for me at the time. And now I say like what would I have rather done instead? And my answer is like, I guess nothing. Like, just save the money, put it
Yeah, I
towards
wouldn't
something
have signed.
else.
I mean, I
But
would have loved to sign one of the other
at,
linebackers that we've talked
at that
about.
time, well, sure, but that's we
Let's
signed
pretend
David
like we've
Long
done
to
it.
2 years, 12 million. That's still another 60 million over 4 years that we got laying around doing nothing. Like, we do
Yeah,
something with that, or
yeah.
not. We could just pocket it for a little while. But we also had
It rolls
we
over.
also so I should say, coming
Gas
into
space
this
rolls over.
offseason, we also had to meet the cap floor. That was why people did think we were going to go crazy. And like, so we did kind of have to do something. It's just that they chose this was so deeply disappointing. And it's not like there were many better values. And the cap floor thing ended up being a little overstated, even though Brad Spielberger and a lot of
Well,
smart people were saying like the Bears are
Brad,
going to go crazy. They have to spend the
no.
money. They were
Brad
saying
wasn't
it.
saying Brad wasn't saying that. Brad was just bringing up the cap floor as a thing. But I'm fairly certain Brad was not saying they have to go crazy. I'm fairly certain Brad was just saying they need to spend this much money. There's a
Not they
big
have to go
difference
crazy.
between because if I remember correctly, I pushed back on that they have to go crazy because I was like, well, once you get the extensions and they're done and they have all the way through till the new league year to spend that money, right? They have all of 2023 to spend that money. So the Jalen Johnson extension, which came in right before the new league year, counts towards the cap floor. And I remember because I'm like, you have the extensions that are coming up, guys. Those are going to count towards it. It's
Yeah.
cash. It's not cap. It's
I,
cash.
I
So
maybe
any signing bonus is going to go towards the cash that they have to spend, even though the cap gets prorated. So those are I had a sorry when you brought up the cap the cash floor the cash spending floor. I don't know if you saw my face as you brought it up. I was like, oh fuck! I just remembered all of the
you did,
like
but it
high
adds
blood
context.
pressure.
It
Yeah, I
it
know.
it, it adds context to what we were expecting
No,
at the
I'm
time.
glad
And
you
what
brought
I
it
what
up.
I'll
I
say
had
is,
forgotten about it. I think I like locked it away and you know didn't want to think about it because I had so much blood pressure just talking about that because I was just sitting there. I'm like, guys, you guys are taking this the wrong way. We have a lot of you know how I am about that shit, so I'm just gonna stop. I'll
I
shut up.
shouldn't I shouldn't say that Spielberger said that we'd go crazy, but I think the expectation that was set by a lot of smart people was that the Bears were going to be very active in free agency.
Yeah,
We didn't think they were going to elect to do nothing. And the other thing is, they did not. They chose to spend 4 years, $72 million with just a 9.75 signing bonus, whatever.
nothing. Yeah.
They chose to spend it on Tremaine Edmonds, and it's just like if you're gonna do that, like okay, then let's do the ill-advised Javon Hargrave deal. Like that sucks, but I'd like it a lot better than Tremaine Edmonds. Like we're gonna do one reckless, silly signing. Let's do one at a position that matters. Let's get a good player.
Hold on. Give me a second. We've had so many conversations about so much of this shit, and I'm just getting flashbacks. Yeah, I mean, okay,
Yeah,
fine. I agree. I agree. If I had to do a bad deal, I would have done the Javon
it,
the
there were
Hargrave.
better bad deals to do.
There are better bad deals to do. Thank God it wasn't the who's the right tackle? Why am I blanking on his name?
I got his PFF here.
McClinchy.
I got his PFF written down. It's fine. We could have done it. The only thing is we would have drafted Darnell Wright, and God knows what we're
I'd
doing with
rather have
that pick.
Darnell Wright.
So
And
yeah,
so
the butterfly effect is looking pretty good for us right now. So even the stuff where it's like, I would have taken McGlinchey over Edmonds. Well, but then we don't have Darnell Wright. So
well, I don't know if
fine.
there's any butterfly effect off of not getting Hargrave, but yeah. I mean, we're still looking
No, that
for
one is a 1-for-1. I wish we'd have done it at the time. I wish we'd have done it now. I don't care that he's older. He just had a nice season. I don't care. I would have loved Javon Hargrave.
yeah, it's the contract is so it's very much a player friendly deal in several ways that you just don't get from the reported numbers. I will say that. And it's not the greatest. Like, I remember Jason Fitzgerald just screaming into the 49ers for that deal, and I agree with him completely.
Because
But
there's
I
two
get
void
it.
years, and it's two void years on Hargrave. After the 4 years, the last two void,
Mm,
the next two void, and the first year there's 10 million in dead money no matter what. Like that's just that's silly. The thing is, the Bears had enough cash and enough cap that they would not have had to do that. They could have just gone straight base salary and
well, you have got to look at why, because so why are those void years there? How long is the actual deal? What does the cash flow look like, right? in those first 3 years. There's a lot more to it than just, hey, they've got the void years, etc. And remember that like you can escape paying like once the void years kick, all of the dead money after accelerates, right? So the year 2 void dead money is going to kick, accelerate, etc., unless you extend him. There's a lot more to it. It's a bad contract. I'm going to leave it at that.
It's very
Um,
bad. I'm saying the Bears were healthy enough cap wise that they would not have had to hand out that same bad deal. And
I don't
again,
know. I mean,
Hargrave might have wanted. What do you mean you don't know?
I don't know in the sense that I don't know what the hell is. There's a very high chance that
You give out void years because you don't have enough cap space. The Bears had cap space. They wouldn't have
sure,
had
but
to
it's
do
I'm
that.
not saying that the contract is bad because of the void years. There's a lot of other reasons why the contract's bad. The contract's also bad because the money that he gets towards the end of his deal is going to put him in a position in which he's going to want to negotiate a longer extension that he might not be worth. But because you're so tied up to him salary cap wise, because of what you've paid him up front, because his deal is very front heavy. It's a very player friendly deal. It's not just the void years that are in there. It's how it's structured that allows him to have sorry, to allow him to have way more leverage towards the end of it when he's not getting paid shit. That's there's more to it than
I
just that. And that's why I don't want to get into it. We're going to get into this podcast is going to turn into a contract structure podcast instead of a what's it called podcast.
I'm
That's
I'm
a Bears
simply saying
podcast.
there's so many variables. One of them is I don't know if Javon Hargrave ever would have wanted to go to the Bears for any amount of money over the
Yep.
49ers. I'm simply saying that the Bears likely could have handed him enough money and structured it in such a way due to their ample cap space
Mhm.
that it probably still would have been better than what they ended up doing with Jermaine Edmonds, which, to be fair, has an out after this year if he doesn't improve greatly. We don't like the Edmonds deal.
Mhm.
While we're talking about things we should have done, I'm going to point this out there. I know you don't know a lot about the guy, but I was saying at the time, I'm going to say it again. We should have signed David Onyemata. He got 3 years, $35 million. He was outstanding last year. That would have been
Yep.
our 3 tech going forward. Would have been awesome. Um, we did do some under the radar type signings after that. Nothing big. I think the biggest one that made the most noise at the time, and I think the highest money one was DeMarcus Walker, who was meh. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
Andrew Billings.
Andrew Billings was the less
I
heralded one, but I think you and I both
like the
were
signing
like,
a lot.
yeah, hell yeah,
Yeah,
and he
like
was he was he was really good.
you got a guy who really adds to your run defense significantly more than I think fans were realizing at the time. That was a very under the radar, really good signing that I loved a lot at the time. I still love. I think I love more now after seeing him play on this defense.
Yeah, he was an interesting kind of case where he was a pretty good draft prospect. So first second round draft prospect. He fell to the fourth for whatever reason. Then he kind of stunk, and he was bouncing around practice squads, and he was really good on the Raiders the year before. Really good run defense. Then he kept it up. So I got no reason to think that's not going to continue to. I think this is probably his contract here. I think it's probably a 2-year deal.
Mm,
Yeah, definitely paid dividends, and we still have a hole in the middle, but he's doing his best to plug that
mm.
up. Let's get to the draft. So yeah, as mentioned, Darnell Wright with the first pick. This is rehashing stuff that I remember us talking about so clearly that we could probably speed through most of this. But Darnell Wright at the time, uh, we traded down one spot with the Eagles. Eagles came up and got Jalen Carter. Do you have any lingering regrets about any of that? I mean, Jalen Carter was really good as a rookie.
I defended him at the time because I saw a lot of people I defended what he did that had dropped his draft stock at the time because let's be honest here, how many football players do that and how many of them get away with doing that and how many of them do we see not get away with doing it? Like that it's just a thing that happens. They're stupid. They're young kids who got a lot of money, right? Um and I don't have the ability to pause the recording, just a heads up. I know you got to go do something. I didn't
I
add
thought you
that
used
setting.
to.
I did. I haven't added that setting to OBS yet.
All right,
So
vamp, and when you run out of things to say, talk about Gervin Dexter and Zach
yeah,
Pickens.
go. He's so Kevin's got somebody at the door. So uh when it comes to Jalen Carter, I remember at the time defending the fact that he got into the car accident. lost a player, and people were, I think there were some people who were coming in saying, "Hi, I told you guys this." He doesn't put effort on the field. Like, hold on, wait, how does this correlate, guys? Like, let's stop. This isn't now all of a sudden everyone's agreeing with me because I say it's not. What's going on? He had a great year, had a great season up until halfway through, which I kind of look at and I say, well, guys, what's going on with the Eagles and their defensive coordinators? How bad do you want to play for the defensive coordinators? Um, do I look at that move and say I'd rather have him over Darnell Wright? No, I mean, we both mocked Darnell Wright at the time to the Bears. I think we both wanted him. I, at the time, if I remember correctly, said, I will accept whatever decision Ryan Poles has made. And at this point, I accept the decision that he made and still do. I think passing up on Jalen Carter, sure, after this season, some people may say, oh, yeah, it's not as big of a deal. No, I think the flashes that we saw early in the season, right before all the DC issues, are enough to tell me that kid's going to be a fucking stud. And I regret it. But again, at the time, I think, Kev, I was saying you and I both wanted Darnell Wright. And I had said that whatever Poles does, I will accept, and I still accept it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I accept it.
I'm not going to criticize it.
It's like the it's almost like the Stroud thing where it's like you can criticize it more in hindsight, but I still think things ultimately worked out just fine. And Darnell Wright's a cool guy, and he's going to be a good right tackle. And we would have ended up needing a right tackle if this offseason, if we had done that. Yeah, I don't have much to add there. And instead of Carter, we ultimately go the quantity approach with Dexter and Pickens, which we already talked a little bit about. So I don't think we have to go too far into that either. But
Also, I'm looking at the Hargrave deal because I'm trying to remember what the details were. I don't know if it was all front loaded because it's not. It's actually pretty evenly distributed. About 20. He made 25 million already in 2023. He'll make up to 40 of it, 61 of it by 2025. Cash flows. It's essentially pretty evenly distributed. It's the how hard is it to get off of him as last year, and how big that dead money is going to be eaten.
yeah, I assume the void,
It's
considering
all
the dead money is 10 million in the void year, it's got to be
well
impossible to get out of it.
it's his insane guarantees in his contract that I think are the bigger issue for someone of his age. But I have
Yeah,
to
for
go back
sure,
and remember what's going on there. Just
for
want to
sure.
correct myself.
So yeah, we've talked about most of this draft already. I feel like pretty recently. Dexter and Pickens. Dexter showed a little pop. Neither one graded very highly in PFF. I was surprised. I remember at the time and in mini camps, it was Dexter getting most of the 3 tech work and Pickens getting the 1 tech. Their tape would have made me think the opposite would have been true, but Dexter was definitely the more disruptive one. I don't is either going to be even a starter. I don't know, but maybe we give us saying Poles gave us 2 shots. By taking 2 shots, we get 2 shots as a starter.
Yeah, I really need to go back and watch my faces during this because I'm giving a lot of faces, I'm sure, that are very interesting. As I'm like listening to you and like trying to say things. It's not because of what you're saying, but it's also because like I'm like, oh wait, because I'm slowly remembering so much of what went through my head during these times. And one thing that I look like I'm balding. One my ADHD's out on full effect, by the way, if anyone hasn't noticed. One thing that I remember specifically with this was talking about the difference in college schemes because remember the whole mirroring thing, et cetera, that came out after we drafted them. And I remember sitting there because like I didn't do much DT work, if you remember, during the draft. I was lazy as
Yeah, I
hell.
did. I did a good amount, and I just I wasn't. I was too lazy to look into what they were asking their DIs to do because
Yeah,
there was a lot of times, and I'll say this: I was right. A lot of the guys do lack burst, but a lot of times it's just not even on the tape. So it's like
they're
you have no. I
they're
correct
not
me,
even
absolutely correct me.
trying. They're not even trying. They what college defenses ask their DTs to do make it so even their edge rushers, it makes it very difficult in some schemes and it's on some teams to actually evaluate the player because you have to comb through so much tape to actually find reps that are translatable to the NFL. And I think that's what we saw both with Dexter and even with Pickens a little bit here and there. I think that was an issue I think throughout most of our defensive line evals, was trying to find, tape that actually translates.
Yeah, impossible. Just not worth trying.
I know, it's really difficult.
What I find interesting, I guess, about these two picks, and it hasn't really been replicated. Not there's been a lot of evidence so far, is that these were two absolute traits over production picks. These were guys who were highly
Yeah,
rated, coming out of high school. That to varying level of good excuse. In Dexter's case, not being out asked to do penetrate much. But we're slight reaches on the consensus board. And yeah, just not super productive in college. And I thought maybe we'd see that as more of a trend, but the only other instances where that he's done anything like that has been on day 3. And honestly, Austin Booker, this most recent draft, and like Dominic Robinson, who was they were both much higher on the consensus board. Kind of outlier weird picks from polls, just in terms of what it seems like he usually does. So I'll throw that in there, but it's whatever. In between that, we did do a slight trade up for Tyreek Stevenson. It cost us I think a 5th round pick that
so I
year.
can tell you what I was thinking at the time of the draft because I texted you during the time of the draft, and that was because I mocked us Tyreek Stevenson. I said, "I hate the fact that we just traded up for Tyreek Stevenson when we could have used the pick on Dexter for Tyreek Stevenson." Um, that's how I remember being like, "If you just did that and then took Dexter later because of the consensus board and where Dexter was on the consensus board, I would have been happier at the time." I think I'm wrong. I was wrong at the time. From my understanding, there were a lot of teams that were much higher on Dexter than fans were, right? He wouldn't have been on the board still. I was and because I like Tyreek, I was fine with the fact that we did trade up for him. I was pissed that we just didn't take him earlier and not do the trade up at all.
Yeah,
And that was
ultimately it cost them a 5th round pick, and then I'll get to it in a second. But their next pick, they trade down a bit and basically just recoup a
yeah.
pick. So it ends up being fine, but it's
This
probably
was
not the
live.
smartest bit of business, and it's also like we have to have Dexter. We also have to have Stevenson. That's not really the healthiest way to think about it. But if you really got
Mm,
2 guys in a tier, then fine. These aren't major moves.
you have the ability to
And
take him. Yeah. The fact that he
the one
recouped
thing
the
I think we
draft
could
pick,
be,
I think, made me feel better. I remember going into that draft, I was not very excited about what we saw on day 2. But
yeah.
sorry, go on.
I was going to move on to well, not even move on, but just say the jury's still out on Dexter and Pickens, and I guess to some extent it is on Stevenson, but I think we're both pretty confident that we got ourselves a fucking stud there.
Yep, I like Stevenson coming out. I do think he looked like absolute shit the first half of his rookie year. So when you
Real
have
bad,
a
real bad.
yeah, if you have an absolute ass first half and a great second half, considering the volatility of cornerback play, I'm not going to sit there and say that he is what he is on his second half. I'm going to wait to see it before I fully crown him, just kind of like you said. But yeah, there's a ton of confidence. I mean, I like my eval on him, so I have a ton of confidence on what we'll see going forward. It's real
Yeah,
funny because there are some smart people, including yourself, who disagreed with my eval on Stevenson. So we'll see how that works out. And I don't
I
think
got,
I
I
was
got,
right.
I got,
I
I
think
got, I got real granular with it. But the main thing was that the
his
what
instincts
what
in
looked
zone
like a
aren't that great.
lack of an awareness in zone was, and that
I think
did
that was
hold true
coaching.
for I think the first eight
Mm,
8 weeks. And I don't even, it could be coaching, but more to the point, I think it's just watching Jalen Johnson, because that guy's instinctive as hell against zone. And then Tyreek started doing Jalen Johnson stuff, and I was like, okay, these guys are clearly watching the tape together. Like, this is
yeah,
awesome. I love this.
no, I love it.
I
I
mean, there was that cover 3 pick where Stevenson comes off his guy and picks off Flacco, diving pick off Flacco, headed back towards the middle, I think, from the boundary. It was just instinctive beauty. It's like to say that this guy has bad zone instincts, and for him to make that play in zone is just God.
Want to prove it here. I want
Ironic,
to.
I guess I would
I
say.
want to. I want to prove it here pretty badly, and because I'm not going to sit there and sit on my priors and say, yeah, he's good, great, I'm awesome, I got it right. No, I want to prove it here. But I will
Yeah, I
say
mean,
that,
you could expect the ups and downs to come because
yeah,
he's a young corner, but
yeah.
yeah,
Really quickly
he
want
looked
to,
real good.
on that note, PFF had us 19th, our secondary 19th. Um, what were your thoughts on that? We haven't talked about this at all. You and I both, like, we haven't even texted about this.
Um,
I didn't see who did that ranking for that article. They switch it off. They get it signed off in Slack chat, I guess, is from my understanding. So like all of them do kind of contribute some comments on it. But in my opinion, those rankings are so author driven. If so, like if Trevor Sikkema did it, I'm gonna sit there and be like, look, Trevor Sikkema's a very nice guy. I think he's a great host. I think he's very charismatic. I don't think he knows shit about football. No, he knows shit about football, but you know what I mean.
I don't. I think he's a little out of his depth at PFF. I think he's a nice guy. I don't want to be. I don't want to be mean to
Oh,
him. He knows stuff. He's a solid
yeah.
scout, but I don't. He's
I
no winner.
don't I
He's no
don't
winner.
look at his stuff and say I'm learning something from him. I typically look at his stuff and say, okay, what is he saying real quick? And typically it's I don't think he's even saying shit that I think most people that I respect should be usually are saying. And that's usually a tell for me. After years of filtering out the people that I respect on here.
I don't. You asked. So you asked me a question. I'll say this. It seems low. I have not looked at the full list. I don't think I'm going to, honestly. I'll say this. Last year, I thought the secondary was going to be the strength of the team. And ultimately, once they were all together, it was. And like last year, I did my own little, stats, as you remember, trying to rank the units, and I had the Bears shockingly low. And I was like, how is this possible? And it just came down to like most secondaries have a good amount of good players. It just depends how you weight them all. But yeah, on paper, like it's a little hard for me to believe that there's 10 worse or 10 better secondaries, let alone 18. That's a little shocking to me.
That's kind of where I'm at, and because there aren't a lot of cornerback. I mean, to be fair, we've seen an influx of cornerback depth and DB depth in the league over the past couple drafts. I want to say like 3 years ago, it was a scarcity. It was very hard to find any really reliable corners, specifically corners. And I think
Yeah.
we've seen a good influx of talent, a lot of young talent. So maybe, sure, maybe I can kind of believe that there's 10 better, but to have any team that's to have 18 better ones, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm trying to find the article, just so I can, because I don't even know. I bring up Sycamore as an example. I don't know if he wrote that. Trying to figure out who did, because they could
I
be
don't know.
also one of their
I'm
like
just thinking
younger
like,
guys.
think of some random team like I don't know, like the Steelers. The Steelers are probably worse than us in the secondary, but like I don't know, they have Minka Fitzpatrick. Like
And Joey
they
Porter
have Joey
Jr.
Porter Jr. They traded for Dante Jackson, and I don't know. After 1 year, am I ready to say that Tyree Stevenson is definitely better than Dante Jackson? Yeah, I think so. But like, I don't know. I can see there's just every secondary has some talented pieces. I think what we don't have is a weak link, and I think Kyler he's probably underrated by me, and then the public probably even more so. So I guess I can see it. Jaquan
I could
Dosker
see
hasn't had the moment that I think we probably expect at some point. So I could see people fading it. Bayard graded highly, but the eye test was poor according to
did
people that
Bayard
actually
grade
watch
highly
more
last
Eagles
year?
and Titans than me. Huh?
Did Bayard grade highly last year? I thought Bayard graded poorly last year.
No, he graded pretty well. Um,
Oh, good. Because he
and
was again. I
but
look
the eye test guys all kind of came together to say no, nah way.
at he graded out with a 74.
If
So
I
he
was
graded
going to say
lower.
if it's above 70, he graded pretty well.
Yeah, 70 in coverage. Um, we have to remember that like Philly was
But
he
he was
actually graded
looking
better
washed
in
on the
total
Titans
defense.
too. Apparently, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So we'll
I don't
see.
know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I would say Bayard is you got some veteran leadership out of him, but he's a chance of being like our weak link.
I guess
Um,
just to answer your question, I can understand how some people could prefer different flavors of things. Even Jalen, they might prefer somebody who's graded higher on PFF, graded highly
Yeah,
more than just the 1 year. I
and
get it.
I think that's the other thing too is like people aren't going to be looking at Jalen Johnson like he's one of the top 3 to 5 corners after a year of showing top 3 to 5 corner play. I think you and I would both agree that he had the potential to be a top 3 to 5 corner for quite some time and showed that potential, but he only really showed it that 1 year. So, whereas I'm buying all my JJ stock hard as hell. So
Yeah.
let's
I
move.
was gonna say, yeah, I think all three corners need all three to some extent. I would say do it again, and then we can start getting offended by PFF lists. Do
Yep,
all of you do what you just did one more time.
yep. That's basically
I'm
where I'm
gonna
at.
I'm gonna speed run down the rest of the draft really quick, and then we could say the guys that we want to talk about at all. The next pick, we traded down from 103 to 115, recouped the pick.
Before you do that,
Oh,
I want
come
to
on.
remind everyone going into day 3, I was pretty disappointed by what we saw in day 2. Keep going.
Okay, fine. Good context.
That's just context because I'm about to say something that is going to make me look
I
stupid at the
thought
time.
you were gonna make a much larger point. I was like, bro, we gotta go.
No, I know.
So we traded down to 115, drafted running back Roshan Johnson with 133rd pick, the pick we got for Robert Quinn. We took wide receiver Tyler Scott. With the 148th pick, the other pick we got for Roquan, we took linebacker Noah Sewell. With the 165th pick, the trade that we got from trading down from 103 to take Roshan, we also then got cornerback Terrell Smith. And then in the 7th round, we took Travis Bell and Kendall Williamson. And I will just say really quickly to address those two. Every team does some weird shit in the 7th round. Poles does some really weird shit. Stop taking guys I've never heard of. I understand you like Travis Bell's personality. Take Zach Kuntz or whatever that guy's name was and see if his trades pay up. We don't need Travis Bell. Enough of this weird shit in the 7th round.
I'm just not gonna. I'm
It's
not
not
gonna
worth
try.
getting into. I
Yeah,
know.
I'm
That's
not
why I
gonna
said
try
it,
this
and
one.
we're done.
Okay. I went from I hate this draft to holy shit, I love this draft. And that was wrong. So I liked Tyler Scott a lot. I remember because you were a big fan. Why am I blanking on the wide receiver you really liked? Holy shit. Fast Virginia, not Virginia, Tennessee? No. Why am I
Oh,
blanking on the
Jalen Hyatt. Jalen
Jalen
Hyatt, yeah.
Hyatt? Yeah. Um, I remember being like, "Oh, this is Jalen Hyatt light. This is like, you know, cheap Jalen Hyatt." Did
Sure.
they went around the same they no, wait, hold on, sorry. Jalen Hyatt win the 3rd.
I won the
Um,
3rd. We got
yeah.
Scott in the 5th.
So, I was a big fan of Roshan Johnson. I was a big fan of Jalen Hyatt. I didn't know much about Noah Sewell at the time of the pick. I then did a lot of film study on him,
You
and
went
I
deep
remember
and you ended up liking him quite a bit.
I am liking him quite a bit. I still think I think he'll be a steal, but we'll find out. And then it's just hard for him to really see playing time considering. Um,
Yeah, if we take advantage of that escape after 2 years in Edmonds, maybe we'll see him.
yeah, I don't know if I like him at
Or
the
if
mic.
literally one guy gets starts.
I do really like him at Sam. I think he might be a tick
Well, Jack at the
but
mic.
yep.
Know what this? Know what's
Jack's on a contract here, dude. He only get 3 years off it as a UDFA. So it's gonna be
I was gonna mention that. I was gonna mention that earlier, and I thought I don't want to get into it, but
well, we'll
man,
talk about that later.
you got to give him a little something.
I would think we would extend him. I think he deserves an extension. Um, the all right, so I remember coming out of that. Who else? So it was Scott, Roshan Johnson, who I both really liked. Who I ended up really liking, and then there was somebody else I want to say we got. Oh,
Terrell
Terrell
Smith
Smith, who
was
you really liked.
my
And I
guy.
remember coming out of that draft that day 3, and I'm like, yeah. And it's stupid of me to be like, this is where I'm going to give myself shit. Uh, Day 3 should not sway how I feel about a
Yeah,
draft because it's
you
such a
cannot be grading anything on day 3. Yeah,
yeah, it's such a crapshoot. At that point, the NFL has told you how they feel about these players. So consensus rankings, go
yeah,
fuck yourself. And consensus rankings should really be thrown out after the top 100. I'm just sorry. They don't really correlate. It becomes super noisy.
yeah.
There's
I
so many.
think when you feel like you've discovered a guy that's one thing. But like when guys are falling and we like him because like, well, this guy was supposed to go way higher than that.
Yeah,
We've talked about this 100
that's
times, but
another thing.
that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot to get excited about.
And to be fair, I watched Scott and I liked Scott a lot, and so, like, that was a Discovery guy. Roshan Johnson was more of a,
Sure.
"Hey, I've listened to some smart people because Bijan's super great, so Roshan couldn't get time on the field, but when Roshan got time on the field, he looked good." So, it was one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like, "Oh, hey, this could be a value, this could be a steal, he probably would've been a starter at so many other places, yada, yada, yada." So I'm sitting there like, wow, we got so much value. I'm dumb as fuck for that. I'm gonna call myself out for it, and I'll say this: the jury's out on all of them. I know a lot of people are sitting there saying, Roshan could have a breakout year. Typically,
Wow.
as a running back, your breakout year happens your rookie year. If you're not looking good,
Roshan Roshan had some angry runs as a rookie. He did not contribute in the pass game as much as we thought he was, and I guess more than anything,
it's a pass blocker.
I followed your lead a little bit. I don't want to take the blame off me. I liked the pick a lot too. You were a lot more excited about Roshan, and I was like, yeah, yeah. You know what? Actually, this is awesome. Why are we getting excited about a fourth round running back? Why are we taking a fourth round running back? Let's lead by example and not
Oh,
take a fourth round running back.
wait, what
A
round would you
guy
take a
who
running back?
Well, yeah, of course, it's separated by their
That,
talents and stuff. But
that is the
Roshan
round that
Johnson
I'm
went in the,
taking a running back.
but that's like where he was supposed to go. Like fourth round
Yeah,
is wasn't even that crazy for him.
yeah, I know, I
Like,
hear you.
yeah,
But yeah, like if you take a fourth, fifth, sixth round running back, yeah, I'm down. That's where you get the value. Might like that a UDFA, shit, yeah. But sure, let's not get excited about
right.
it.
I'm saying take the guys who typically go in the second round. Those are the guys to get excited when we can get them in the fourth round. And this is contrary to what I just said, but this is for running backs specifically. Running backs go too high in general.
Okay.
Let's get like it's not like Roshan Johnson fell a crazy amount. He was a
You're
little bit
talking
under the
about like a
radar
Zach
because of
Charbonnet.
Bijan, and we
Where's
got him right
Charbonnet
where
go?
we wanted him.
Where's
He went in
Charbonnet
the
go?
second round. He went in the second round to Seattle.
Because he was a second rounder. Why did I think he went later?
Okay,
Uh,
If Zach Charbonnet had fell to the 115th pick, I'd still be doing cartwheels like that. That would have been crazy.
yeah, but that's what you're saying is like if we can get somebody like that in the fourth, we would be
Right. Let's
happy.
not get excited about a fourth round running back who should have gone in the fourth. That's what I'm
Yeah, yeah.
saying.
I
It
hear, I
might
hear.
turn out great, and I don't. Yeah, I doubt it's going to go well. And also, who cares? It's a running back.
Yeah,
He's our
so
third
this is
string running
this is
back
what I'll
now.
say is I'm not gonna get hyped for it. I'm not gonna sit there. We're gonna get a breakout year. I don't understand why people say that. Running backs typically see that. If we get that, that's awesome. Would love that. I'm not gonna sit there and say it's not gonna happen. But typically, a running back hits the ground running. This isn't tight end, cornerback, even wide receiver. To an extent, you typically see a bigger jump their second year. Running backs typically show you what they can do their first year, and he hasn't. So I'm just gonna sit there and be flat on it. Tyler Scott, on the other hand, we're talking a little bit about Tyler Scott really quickly.
Don't bring in whatever I've said about him. That's all I'm going to say. You say what you said. I'll say what I think.
No, the only thing that I'm gonna say is I think Tyler Scott was significantly hampered. Oh, but people are gonna bring up the one drop that he had. Holy shit. One, maybe two drops. I can't remember. Um, I think he was significantly hampered by Justin Fields. I think there were times where he was flying wide the fuck open that he just got ignored. That's all I'm gonna say. Like
That's
wide
possible.
open.
I saw issues, but at the same time, I think we were in agreement that if we'd gone into him, gone. I think we've already said this, so I think
If
we're in
we went
agreement.
in with him
If we had
as
gone
a third.
into this season, if he was our third, we would have both been pretty upset with that.
Oh yeah, I
As
look
our
at him as a fourth.
fourth, that is pretty good.
Yeah, and I've always looked at him as a fourth who could turn into a third. I've never looked at him as a wide receiver two.
I'll say
I've never looked
I
at him as a bona fide wide receiver three. He is your speed option that you get out there to threaten to blow the top off of a defense and hope you get a couple of nice plays out of it.
I will say that I saw some issues only when he was targeted, so not that often, that make me a little bit concerned, but I also keep in the back of my head that he was raw, he had been a running back for a portion of college, and that those things could work itself out. But there were some issues. I don't think it's a slam dunk. I understand why he went 2 rounds lower than Jalen Hyatt, who was not very good as a rookie himself. But for a fifth round pick, that was nice.
Were they ball
Uh,
tracking issues?
uh, just anything related to him catching a football, I guess. Ball tracking for sure. playing the ball in the air, a slightly different, but still, mentally the same thing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like on a deep ball tracking. If the ball's in his hand, catching the ball, getting 2 feet down in bounds. Um, Body catching, basically, just his relationship to a football in the air is not what I'd expect out of a receiver who plays in the NFL right now.
Yep.
It's
I
not.
think
I'm
that
not
goes
gonna say. I'm not gonna say it is. It is disastrously bad. I think people who look at the 2 drops are like going a little crazy with that.
Mhm.
There was one where if Fields had put it on the money, Scott would have caught the ball and the game would have been over. That Lions comeback. That was all on Fields. So, well, Scott should have come back for the ball, but it still would have been incomplete.
You're asking a
Um,
lot for a rookie
I'm
wide
not
receiver.
asking. I'm not asking that much, but I'm
No,
saying, what do you think of this guy who's in the NFL and is playing? I'm saying I don't really want him playing, but I think he could
no, no, no.
improve.
I'm talking about in that play to be able to come down with that ball with where the ball was placed.
Oh no,
Um,
I'm saying he probably should have cut, like, objectively he probably should have come back for the ball a little bit, but it didn't matter. It would have been incomplete anyway. Like as it was,
yeah,
it was incomplete.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're not on vastly different pages with Scott.
No,
I thought you were about to say you hate Tyler Scott, and I was like, don't you bring that in. I'll say
no.
my
I
own
was
thing
just
about
gonna say
Tyler Scott.
I was hyped about him, but I also was hyped about him as, hey, this is a guy that can take the top off of defense and potentially give you more in other ways. But also, we're talking about, like, in my mind, oh, he's going to be our wide receiver 3 right now. And that's fine because we know we lack depth at wide receiver. So that sucks. But hey, he's better than like a Velus Jones Jr. He's probably more of a wide receiver 4 type. And I'm happy that we grabbed him. Right. Um,
Yeah,
that was it. And I do think he would have had a better season. I think he gets shat on way too much for not producing when a lot of his reasons for not producing is, "Hey, I'm just not gonna throw to you, man." Um, that's it. In my opinion, I think a lot of it, and sure, he had other problems, I'm not gonna disagree with you, but I do think
sure.
that opportunities lead to production, and he lacked opportunities in spades.
I
Lacked
mean, you
them in
can you
spades.
can knock me over with a feather if you're telling me that Justin Fields turned down open receivers last year and Tyler Scott was one of them.
Yeah, but I don't know that. I don't know that. Knock me with a
You
I
don't
d
know the term?
No, I've never heard that term before.
I don't know if I've ever even used it before, but to not know what it means is so weird.
Thanks,
You never heard
asshole.
knock me over with a feather?
No, I've never heard
I'm just
knock me over.
shocked.
I hear you. I hear you.
I'm sarcastically saying, of
I know.
course. Like, I can't remember anything specifically, but if you're telling me Justin Fields turned down a receiver, like, yeah, yeah.
There
So
were
I
ample.
don't, I don't doubt that you saw that. I don't
Yeah,
remember seeing it, but I wasn't really looking.
that's fair. There were ample opportunities in my opinion. But let's move on.
Well,
Gets a lot of time.
I got to shout out my guy really quick, Terrell Smith. I got to say, rare, uh, kind of a drop on the consensus board. I was still excited to get him because I really liked him, and he looks good. He looks like
Yeah.
he's a number 4 corner. He gave Tyreek a run for his money in
I
training
think
camp,
there's
according to some people, and he sees the field a weird amount for a number 4 corner because they rotated a little bit, I guess.
well, there's
Even when they're
also
all
a
healthy, he would get on the field.
there's also a ton of injuries.
But even when they were
The
healthy, maybe it was guys just like, feeling something for a series of plays.
yeah,
But I felt like I saw him on the field a lot more, even when the top 3 were healthy. And
yep.
I never he never looked out of his depth to me. And considering I liked him
In
beforehand, I'm taking that as an early cautiously optimistic W.
So this is where I get a little weird with the PFF ranking because in my opinion, I think there's a lot of teams he could start for. And when your fourth guy is a guy who potentially could be a starter for, I mean, like the Vikings last year, you're gonna tell me that Vikings or Lions wouldn't love to have had Terrell Smith as one of their starting corners last year?
Yeah. I think he'd probably be a bad starter for the Vikings or Lions, but the fact that he could even be a
Be
starter
a
over
starter.
guys that they have is something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So like,
I think there's definitely room to grow.
yeah. I think
Um,
he's a low end starter that is now our backup, which is a fantastic backup to have. Like that is what you want as a backup, and that's like you can't ask for much more than that.
And then, so just to wrap up the 2024 rookie draft class, the UDFA class once again was headlined by one guy and a bunch of guys I had never heard of. well, I'd heard of Micah Baskerville, but who cares? Tyson Bagent was signed, and we've already talked about Tyson Bagent.
Let's
I'll
watch
say
our
this:
backup quarterback draft.
there's a chance that he might be a backup quarterback, and if that's what you got in UDFA, awesome, good for you.
You know what? I'll take it. I'll take a value backup. I know you want a better backup than Bagent, and let me be
I
very
like
clear
it
here.
this year.
Yeah, let me be very clear here. I don't see Bagent as we went through our quarterback draft. I don't see Bagent as a top 16 backup. So our backup quarterback
I don't
draft,
know that I see him as a top 32 backup, but there's a chance.
I'm not going to go that far. I really have to think about it. Now, what I will say though is if we have a very cheap backup who honestly showed the ability to carry the team for like a game or two before he showed the ability to not be able to carry the team for a game, not carry, let me be clear here. Run the offense for a game or two before teams figure it out. Oh, this dude is just not very gifted like physically. He doesn't have any of the traits that he needs to be able to do some of the things that we can defend the field differently based off of how he is as a quarterback and put him in some issues. I think we
I'll
saw
say
enough.
really quick. So you said, I do of course wish we had a better backup quarterback than Tyson Bagent, but I think Fishbane made a point that I hadn't really thought of because
Hmm.
Tannehill's still out there. It seems kind of obvious, just sign Tannehill. But he made the point: is it best for Caleb to have a quarterback room where your backup is a guy who probably rightfully still believes he should be starting in the NFL?
I disagree with
Probably
that. Yeah.
not.
No. So like a
So like,
Jameis.
or like Tannehill.
Yep. Yeah. No, I know, but I'm bringing up other examples, like a Jameis Winston, for
Yeah.
instance. Like,
Um,
yeah,
I wanted Drew Lock coming in. Drew Lock got a better situation than we were ever gonna be able to offer, so that's fine. But
you think he's gonna
there's some
start?
higher end guys I wanted.
How many weeks in do you think until he takes Danny Dimes'
He'll,
job?
he'll he'll start games for sure. I don't know. I'm excited to watch more Giants Hard Knocks and find out
No.
more about what's going on with Danny Dimes. So
Mm.
we'll probably get a little bit of insight there. I don't know. I don't. It's weird because even in the first episode, they're being you could tell that Joe Shane knows the cameras in front of him, in my opinion, when he talks about Daniel Jones, and he's not saying anything bad about him as a player, but he's like, we gotta be realistic. It's 3 injuries and ACL. We need to make sure we're insured at quarterback. And like in his mind, it's like we got to get a better fucking quarterback than this guy.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm excited to see how that turns out because they are going to sign Drew Lock, or they did sign Drew Lock, so we're going to see that happen. I think we're going to see them desperately trying to move out for Drake May. And I'd like to see, like, if they keep putting it on the injury, it'll be interesting. So I don't know. I want to see Drew Lock get a chance though. I've always had a weird affinity for him.
Yeah, nope, that's
But
for sure.
I'll just say, the Bears quarterback room right now, it's Tyson Bagent, Brett Rypien's dad, is Mark Rypien. So for as untalented as he is, I'm sure he has some wisdom he can impart. And Ryan Griffin I don't think he's a quarterback coach. He's something. He might be a quarterback coach, but he
I
was
think he's a
a
quarterback coach.
longtime third stringer for Tampa and I think New Orleans for a little while. So like,
Um,
yeah, maybe those are
Kerry Joseph is our quarterback coach. I think he's a consultant of some sort, or like he's in
yeah.
the room as a coach.
Fishbane pointed out that he's in the room, and I thought, you know what, I guess I probably would maybe prefer the Caleb be surrounded by these guys who have never had a chance but have some knowledge. Like Nathan Peterman is another example. But like, I'm with it, and I just think the Bears might be kind of good this year, and it would be a shame to have to turn this thing over to Bagent. But like, it's about Caleb. Well, I can see the argument. Anyway, that's
You
the
can always
draft.
go the Joe Flacco route, right? Where you deal with an injury and then you say, all
Yeah,
right, now
that's when
let's
we
get
sign Tannehill because that's exactly when Tannehill's going to sign with somebody. So
exactly.
there's that too.
So if we really need someone, you can always bring somebody in mid-year. I haven't had an issue with it. I see it as a low stakes dart throw. Let's see what he can turn into. If he could be like let's say, the chances of Caleb not working out feels so low to me. Let's say Caleb doesn't work out, and yes, that's for anyone listening. That's how confident I feel about Caleb Williams. Let's say Caleb doesn't work out. and you get a Brock
No,
Purdy.
no, no. Let's not say
Right?
that.
But it's nice to be
Don't
developing
ever
a
say
young.
that.
Let's. It's nice to be developing another young quarterback too. That's a low stakes dart throw. I like the move in that sense. I'm not gonna shit on the idea of keeping him around. I just want to make sure people understand that anyone that overhypes our backup quarterback, one, why the fuck are we doing that in the first place? Holy goddamn shit. Two, and it is a very small few people that I'm complaining about, but also two, he's not that good as a backup. Let's back up a little bit. Let's back up on the backup. That's all. Yeah, so we signed him. I have no grades on the UDFAs. That UDFA class I feel like went by.
There's nothing to grade. We found one guy
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to backtrack just a second because I do want to list off the other slightly lower end free agents that we signed. You don't have to have a single comment on any of these, but I think it's important to note that PJ Walker was one of them. And released Trevor Siemian as soon as we signed PJ Walker. Signed Travis Homer, Deontay Foreman, Robert Tunyon, Rasheem Green. I don't think there's any reason to have any thoughts on any of that, but I do think interesting, just having talked about Tyson Bagent. What the hell were they doing signing PJ Walker? That was really weird.
He looked good though on the Panthers, didn't he? You didn't like him. I remember you
Would you
not
say that?
liking
Would you say that? Would you say that Josh Dobbs looked good this year?
for what he had to deal with. Sure. I mean, he's a.
I would say PJ Walker was significantly worse than Josh Dobbs was last year.
I don't know. I understand the signing. Here's where I'm going to give Poles some credit. They moved off of it real fast when they saw how bad it was. So
yeah, absolutely. I unironically give full credit for that.
yeah,
I just say don't do it in the first place. But yeah,
move off of it.
eat,
Fuck it.
eat the money. You made a mistake.
Yep.
Turn it over to this kid who's obviously better. And
Yep.
boy, for Tyson Bagent to be obviously better than
That's
a guy you signed to real money is Jesus. Okay. Let's grade the draft. You got something else?
Foreman. Good signing, man. In hindsight, at the time, I was like, you know what? He was good with the Panthers. I'm fine with it. Whatever. It's a running back. I don't care. I'm a big Khalil Herbert fan. And then also Roshan Johnson. So it's like this is a lot of depth to add. We ended up needing it. So I just want to throw out
So
there.
we signed Foreman obviously before we drafted Roshan.
Yes.
I do remember thinking, okay, good. This clears up not to take a running back in the draft was maybe one of my first thoughts. And also, I think I liked it. Jesus, did I maybe like it a little bit more in hindsight than I did in foresight? Am I a little bit the opposite? Because he had just rushed for nearly 1,000.
I like it in hindsight more. Let me be clear here.
No. I'm.
You're
Geez,
flipping. Yeah,
I am flipping. I think I liked it more at the time and like it maybe a little less after the fact.
how is that possible? He definitely played better than expectations.
Well, I liked it. See,
And
I don't
we
know if I
needed
agree
him
with
more
that
than I think
because
we
he had just been really good on the Panthers, like legitimately nearly 1,000 yards, and was the centerpiece of them getting back into the playoff.
Right,
hunt
as
in
their
the
main
NFC
guy. We
South.
also had Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson that he had to split opportunities with, and when
Well,
he
so
had
again, at the
opportunities,
time, I had no reason to know that we'd have
okay, fine, but we had Khalil Herbert,
Roshan Johnson.
which, to be fair, at the time, at least myself, thought Khalil Herbert's going to get the majority of the carries. Where in my mind, when that signing happened, Foreman was coming in was it when we had Run DMC? Who the hell was that? Why am I blanking on his name? We didn't use him for shit, and then the next year, God damn it, David Montgomery. I don't remember who the M is. That's what I'm trying to get, and then Cohen. Why am I blanking on this?
Oh,
running
the
back
D is
here?
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis. Okay, so it's Davis, Montgomery, Cohen.
Oh yeah, I've never heard of that in my life.
Run DMC, really? Oh, it was a great. That was
Is
a
that a
great one.
reference to? Is that a reference to something? That's a joke. I know what it's a reference to.
Okay.
I never heard the Bears running backs called. That's clever. I like it.
Yeah. Mike who ended up having a really good season the next year after we didn't use him. I saw him a lot like the Mike Davis signing in the sense of, cool, we got him just in case we need him. He'll probably see some late down not late down work, maybe some early down work, honestly, with what he is. But is there more so to give Khalil Herbert some rest? Because
Yeah,
I like
I
those.
thought it was a good 1-2 punch, and I thought I didn't think there was necessarily a reason to put all of our eggs into the Khalil Herbert basket. I didn't expect to sign a running back, but when we did, I thought, okay, this is fair. I like this. Then he was a healthy scratch for a few games. And then when he was not a healthy scratch, he had a couple really nice games. I
Mhm,
think in hindsight, knowing that we would have signed Roshan Johnson, I probably or we're going to draft Roshan Johnson, I certainly would have said only do one of those two things.
mhm.
So that's maybe where my criticism is. We just want a little running back heavy for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. That's fair. I will say that my grade in hindsight is higher just because of what he did produce and how he filled in when our running back room was depleted due to injuries. I think he was a fantastic guy.
Okay.
Not something that I would have expected personally.
All right. We have 3 more moves we got to hit on. So
Yeah.
let's do you want to give a grade really quick on the draft?
At the time, I don't. Our grades are out there in the public, so I don't want to give my at the time grade just in case
Yeah.
it's off of what I said publicly. I don't remember what it was. I want to say it was a B.
I'm thinking yours was probably a B, and mine was probably more like a B minus, C plus,
Yeah,
B minus. Sounds right.
yeah. We both wanted Darnell Wright. Great move. Did not like day two. Now, probably the same, honestly.
I agree. I don't think
Yeah,
there's much reason to change.
yeah.
I mean,
Darnell Wright's been
Tyreek's a lot better than I thought he would be. Darnell Wright is, if I'm being 100% honest, I would say Darnell Wright is maybe like a half standard deviation worse as a rookie than I thought he would be. I thought he was maybe nobody's putting him in the conversation as the top 5 right tackle in football, and I thought that there was a chance he might be sniffing that, and I think he'll get there. So it's the nittest of nitpicks. I'm not criticizing anything about it, but I thought, based on me watching him, I thought that he had a chance to come in and be impact like right away,
mm,
and he was just good.
mm.
Um, Dexter seems like it might work out, and all of day 3, again, you've already acknowledged
Day three
silly
picks.
to for both of us to like it as much, but Terrell Smith looks like he's definitely a keeper. Scott and Sewell both seem like
There's
they're not getting
potential.
cut anytime soon. And Roshan, that was probably a bad pick. I'm be honest, that was a bad pick.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go out there and say it right up front. But that's where I'm leaning with Roshan. Again, going back to if you're a running back, typically you show it as a rookie.
Yeah,
They hit the ground running, guys. This isn't a he needs to get used to the NFL. It's
it's a
not what
job
happens with this
description.
position. Yeah. Um, yeah,
Well, damn it. Wait, no, it's not funny enough to double back for. Never mind.
I don't know what you're gonna double back for anyway. Let's move on.
I would no.
Um,
You know what? I'm going to double back. The problem with Roshan Johnson is that he did hit the ground running too often. He would run and then he would hit the
hit the
ground
ground.
very shortly thereafter.
The puns.
See,
Oh,
it was okay. It was
there we
okay.
go. There we go. Funny. We got 2 more moves we need to talk about that happened in season, right?
Yeah, one more in the offseason. We eventually signed Yannick Ngakoue.
Yep. Oh, right. So we've got 2 trades and then Yannick. Let me
I'm so
let me
mad. I'm so mad that there are 2 trades. I was gonna hit you with
what do you think I'm gonna forget about us getting rid of Claypool and handing him over to the
I
Dolphins?
had a whole thing. I was gonna be good. Now we can't do it.
Sorry, bud. Um,
I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do what I was gonna do anyway, but I'll
all
just
right.
have to front porch it with this is what I was gonna do. Yannick, what
So
do you think?
I'm gonna be one of the few Bears fans that sat there and said, and again, I guess I'm gonna be one of the few Bears fans. How often do I say that? I'm weird, man. I'm a weird person. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm probably not, to be honest with you guys. Actually, no, I am. Let me be very clear. I was one of the few Bears fans at the time that said we don't really need an edge. I think any of the edge options we currently have probably don't really add all that much for what we need and aren't going to help us in the future for like a Super Bowl run. I don't really care at that. Go ahead and grab a beer. Um, I was one of the few that I like because I looked at let's look at the 2017 Bears where our edge rushers were before we got Khalil Mack, and we're still like what a top 10 defense at that year. Like our defense was significantly better than what the team was.
It was Leonard Floyd and Lamar Houston and Pernell McPhee were a part of it, and the less annoying Acho brother.
Yes,
McPhee might have been, or no, Houston was gone. McPhee was still there. The less annoying Acho brother was our third guy, I think.
Yep. So not Sam, the other one. Emmanuel Acho.
No, I think
no, Sam would be it. Sam would be it. Yeah. And so I look at that defense and I'm like, well, what carried that defense? It was the back seven, not the front seven. Sorry guys, like it wasn't the front four. You can look at what the Ravens do. The Ravens build their defense from the back to the front. Like I've always been a build the defense from the back to the front. You need pass rushers. Don't get me wrong. You need pass rushers. But I wasn't sitting there saying, oh my God, they don't have it, which means we're going to absolutely suck. Pass rushers do not raise the floor. They raise the ceiling. In my opinion. So when you're looking at a team that's rebuilding, I'm less ready to commit resources to the front four early on. And so I remember being really fucking annoyed because at that time people were screaming about it. It's like, oh my God, we need a pass rusher. How can we not have a pass rusher? We signed Yannick Ngakoue, and I'm stoked for one reason specifically, and I have a tweet saying this. The only reason I cared about that was because it would get people to shut the fuck up. Like that was literally it. I'm like, yes, I no longer have to hear because it's not just fans. Let me be clear here. I might make it seem like I'm giving fans shit. It's the beat reporters talking about it just constantly. So of course the fans are talking about it. So I have to sit there and listen to beat reporters just hammer the fucking. We don't have a pass rusher, and they're not wrong. We don't. But I don't care, man. I really don't. We're a long way away from contending, right? And as I've mentioned, there are defenses.
Yeah, when the goal is not yet to win, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, and that's specifically what I'm getting at. The goal is not yet to win. We got a group of we got secondary that can help raise the floor quite well. And honestly, you can scheme up a pass rush. The Ravens have been doing it for years. So,
and my goal was a little bit more to win at the time, and for that reason, I will say I hated the Yannick Ngakoue signing because I hate Yannick Ngakoue. I think there's a chance he could return this year, and I will still hate him.
If he does on a 1-year deal, I'm gonna once again just be like, cool. Gets people to shut up about needing a second pass rusher.
And so I understand, and there is an absolutely clear object lesson with the Ravens that building back to front is a good thing to do. I am more of the mindset of it's a symbiotic kind of relationship between the two. I think if you don't have one, it makes the other one look like shit, and vice versa.
I agree with that.
Khalil Mack looked like shit for a lot of the end of his Bears career. Looked like shit in quotes because the secondary couldn't do their job. Secondary will look like shit if the pass rush can't get home. Obviously, you can absolutely manufacture a pass rush. That often comes at the expense of your secondary. If your secondary is good, then they'll cover long enough for the guys to get home. This scheme, probably not blitzing a whole lot. Ravens scheme, they're going to be exotic and send shit from all over the place, so it's a little easier. In this scheme specifically, when the time comes to win a Super Bowl, I really want the Bears to have 3 good edge rushers and 2 good interior rushers. Not Pro Bowl, you know what I mean? But like
I'm not going to
2 big time rushers and then some other supplemental guys that can do their job. And right at this moment, I think we have 1.
I just had a tweet thread talking about the looks in the fronts and what I want to see from Flus going forward. So I'm not going to get into scheme specifics because I think there's some evolution happening within his own defense. I don't know what that's going to look like on pass rush. But yeah, I understand where you're going there. I just don't want to. What I'm saying is, I'm not going to address the scheme thing because I think there's a chance that it evolves. That's all I'm going to say. But you're right.
For some reason, every year we play the Commanders, and we're going to play them again this year. When we play the Commanders, Eberflus learns what cover zero is all of a sudden.
Yeah,
And
and
it's beautiful. But as a rule, we're not doing a ton of blitzing.
no,
There's
but
some, some of the green dog and
we're
whatever coming
more
in, but like not a lot of blitzing.
we're more varied. So our run fits have become extremely varied. Our run and how we handle our run fits depending on our fronts, which are varied. We're not in a lot of under fronts as often as we should, as often as you would think we would be. A lot of 4-3
Now
unders.
that's interesting
Um,
to absolutely no one except you and me, and I have not read about that.
which is why I'm
And
saying
I'd like to see that.
I'm gonna skip over. I'm
I'd
gonna
like to look. I'd like to
yeah,
look into that. I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting. Again, only to me. I don't
yeah.
think anybody in the world else cares, but
I'm gonna
that is interesting.
I want to briefly that's why I wanna briefly just, like, go over it and just say I don't wanna comment on scheme right now because I 'cause I'm excited to see as Flus continues to hear different voices in the room and evolve it as he watches other film. I'm excited to see what he does. I don't know if that means it's gonna change, but he's already proven to me that he's less vanilla than he was a lot less vanilla when people were healthy, um, than when he was early in the season. Now on that note, I talking about the back to the front, I do think this is why I say the floor is raised by your defensive backs, because if you can't cover for a second, there's no fucking point in a pass rush. When you have Kindle Vildor getting absolutely burnt, Khalil
That
Mack
I agree
never
with.
going to get home, never going to get home, and
That
that's
I've agreed with for
his
some time.
pressure numbers were so damn high in 2019, but he had no sacks. I wonder why, and our defense still didn't look very consistent or great, right? It took a massive step back, or 2019 or 2020, I can't remember. And which year I'm talking about. I think it was 2020 with Vildor. So yeah, no, that's why I think you build back to
Or
front.
the
And the other part of it
pathbreakers.
is it's very hard finding elite pass rushers. They just don't exist very. That's I go back to the Khalil Mack trade. As somebody who's very like, oh my god, I love my draft picks. Why am I okay with the Khalil Mack trade? Because it's so hard to find a pass rusher. Spending 2 first rounders on an elite guy and being guaranteed you get an elite guy is perfectly fine. Because the chance of you finding an elite guy in the first round is like a 30% chance hit rate of finding elite. It's like 40% even for tier one starters, like guys right below that. It's not
So
high.
we'll certainly get into the value of trading for a pass rusher and the contract you give him afterwards
Yeah.
in just a moment. But for signing this pass rusher before the season, I'll say it was basically pointless if it was going to be Ngakoue, because Ngakoue is the absolute worst run defender and genuinely maybe in NFL history. Um, this year he put up a 39.9 overall grade, a 37.7 run defense grade, and a 47.6 pass rush grade. Just an awful player. Just
Mm,
and not to say that there was not a point in his career where I liked him and he was very good, but this dude has no interest in playing run defense, and also if he's interested in rushing the passer, you wouldn't know it. He fucking sucks.
well, and on that note, I'm not going to disagree with you, and I don't disagree with you. But I love the signing because it gave me some peace of mind because I could go on Twitter and say, I'm not saying people just complain about something that I think is really fucking stupid all the
Yeah.
time.
The thing
And it
is,
was a
and
1 year, $10 million deal, so I just didn't care.
maybe a little less so than me, but I had no reason not to have some playoff hopes last year. Like, we thought Fields was going to become good, and if that were going to be the case and we were left without a defense, that would have sucked. So I was like, I wasn't like, certainly I wasn't like the fans who were like, why didn't we draft a defensive end? We need a defensive end. Well, shut up.
Don't
That's what I
draft
have to
for
say to you about
needs.
that. Yes,
Drafting for
exactly.
needs is dumb.
But also, if you are going to draft for needs, you still have to have a player there that's worth it. Like what you like.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
but
maybe let's go 10 players down our big board because we really want to draft an edge. Fine. Not the best practice, but if you're in a certain window of contention, you really think the guy's going to help you that year, fine. But
hey, Kevin, do you remember us talking about the edges in that draft class and how much I bitched about everyone wanting to draft a second round edge? And I'm like, there's not going to be jack shit there, so I don't know why you want a second round edge.
yeah, well, that just reminds me, I got to double back for something really quick.
Yep.
Um, but literally, there was never a single pick in this draft, and I'm trying to look back where
Oh, I hated this edge draft class.
I like
Wait,
Dylan Horton. Dylan Horton just got over, I believe, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Good for him. I think maybe we could have drafted him instead of trading down.
Um,
And getting the
who's the
guy
who's the guy?
Byron Young ended up being pretty good on the Rams. We had a shot at him at some point, obviously, but like in general, again, the Young thing is a little bit of hindsight. Like it was a bad draft class.
Who's the guy who likes to talk about Bears draft that I don't like? I don't remember his name. I always blank on it because I just don't want to care about this guy ever. You know
I
it
mean, I
though.
can't imagine you're thinking of Jacob Infante. What are you talking about?
You do, yeah. See, I always know you're gonna
That
remember
is who
his
you're
name.
talking about?
Yeah, that's who I'm talking
The
about.
guy who likes to talk about the guy whose job it is to talk about the Bears draft.
Yeah. That dumbass.
I thought you were just talking about some random guy like who just like me. I like talking about the Bears draft.
No. Jacob
I'm doing it
Infante.
right now.
I remember him tweeting about how deep this edge class was, and I'm
Oh,
like,
that's classic annoying thing for almost any position. Like, oh, I can list a lot of names. Well, are the names fucking good?
are they good? Can I set my clock to any of them? Can I
Now
set my
that is a
watch?
Benjamin Solak. That is a Benjamin Solak line. We
And
must
I
cite our
must credit
sources.
him. Can I set? I set no, but I cited him at the time. Solak was great. When Solak said this, I'm like, yes, that's what I've been trying to say for so long. This draft class, you cannot. And Solak said it. Can I set my watch to a single one of them?
Yeah,
They all have
but
certain things that they're kind of good at, but who can I set my watch to down in and down out actually be good? There wasn't to this day. Like in this draft class, honestly, Will Anderson has been surprisingly better than I would have expected. I didn't think he was a blue chip. I thought it was a red chip.
some
That draft
lessons,
class,
some lessons,
some
some
lessons to
lessons
learn.
learned a little bit out of
Some
that.
lessons to be learned from that. I agree. But outside of that, I'm pretty sure I got this draft class fucking spot on when I said I do not like this edge class. Going up.
Yeah. And when you told me that Slack said that, and Slack, I do not respect his ability as an evaluator for anything besides defensive lineman. I think he's outstanding defensive lineman.
Really.
No shade, but he is a bad evaluator in almost every other
I love
position.
Solak, man. Okay, whatever.
He's got a lovely personality. He's bad at everything, but
He's my spirit animal.
That put a lot in perspective for me because I remember trying to spend a lot of time because we didn't know what we were going to do with the 9th pick and like trying to talk myself into Van Ness and Murphy and a few other names that I forget, and later on like Ojolari and Derek Hall and Isaiah Foskey.
I think we wanted FAU in the second round. We wanted FAU in the second. That was like
so that's what
and he went 32nd overall. And honestly, probably a bad pick on our part anyway.
Oh, Will McDonald. I maintain I will be proven right on Will McDonald at some point.
I think you will be. I like Will McDonald so far and what he's shown with the Jets defensive line is so good.
Yeah.
But
anyway, don't
worry about time, by the way. I know this is gonna be a long episode, but I know I had things to do after, and I think that things to do after is getting canceled. So keep on.
Okay. I gotta ask. Maybe you can tell me this after the pod if it's not pod worthy. Why is this a 2-person job?
It's not. I need a place to store them that is well ventilated. So I'm doing it at his house so that I could store them in his shed afterwards.
Okay. He for the listeners, Adam abducted several children. He doesn't want them to suffocate, so he needs them to be in a well ventilated area. So he can use them as ransom. If the kids are dead, they're not gonna. They're of no value.
CIA, FBI, whoever the hell could be listening. That's obviously a joke. Not what we're talking about. But I need to put an overcoat on something that's painted, and it needs to cure in a well ventilated room after I spray paint it on. And he's got a shed that I could throw it in the backyard. And so I'm just gonna do it at his house and put it in a shed. I have nowhere to store it in the apartment that it can store and cure without, potentially damaging Sophia and my brain.
The entire CIA stood up until you clarified it was a joke. Like that. Okay. All right, fine.
I gotta do it just in case. I gotta. Anyway, where were we?
I think I was stumbling over trying to remember what I was trying to say. I thought I had one more thing to say, but it's probably.
We're talking about the draft class. We talked about the edge class and how it wasn't super great.
I want an
still
edge rusher
wanted some
then. I
trust.
want another one now. I want a second guy that I can trust to get the job done, especially if our only good edge rusher gets hurt. I just want another guy because I think we can make the playoffs. I don't think it's likely, but like we could, and I'd hate for the reason to be that a guy gets hurt and our best edge rusher is DeMarcus
How many
Walker. Let's get a
defensive
guy.
lines? How many defensive lines have more than one guy? At edge, at
Uh,
edge, at edge. Not because I think you can have two guys. I typically think you supplement the second with an interior.
I would say that's a pretty unfair question. But I will also say blindly, every single good defense in the league besides the Ravens has
Who's next to
two
Bosa?
pretty good edge rushers. Who's next to Bosa?
Who's on the other side of
Well,
Bosa?
last year in the Super Bowl, it was Chase Young and Randy Gregory.
This year.
I don't know, whoever they signed.
No, it's pretty weak after it's him and Hargrave. Who's next to Myles Garrett? They've got a good defensive line. I don't think they've got a second edge rusher, do they?
Last year, Jadeveon Clowney was great. I was just about to say, rattle off his PFF stats as the guy we should have signed.
I'm talking about this year, bro. Is
The
Clowney back with them?
The 49ers signed Leonard Floyd.
Okay, so we're talking about a Floyd level guy.
Anyway, the Browns have Zadarius Smith.
If we're talking about a Floyd level guy, yeah, sure. Do they have
That's what I'm
Smith?
saying.
All right, yeah, fine.
I'm not saying, but I'm also saying the truly good ones, like the team builder who I think you and I both admire most, Howie Roseman, is absolutely of the collect a shit ton of edge rusher school. I think there's a lot of ways to skin a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Or skin children in a well-ventilated area in your case. But
that's fucked up, dude. I'm not saying there's anything against. I think once you get to a certain baseline, yeah. I also think that Howie Roseman did I'm not even going to concentrate on the back, right? And the back seven.
That's why, again, I think there are multiple ways to skin a cat.
They took a massive step back.
I'm not saying
their defensive line is. I'm not.
Right,
yes, I think I agree with what you said initially. Let me symbiotic. I just do think that the floor in this symbiotic relationship, the floor is raised by your defensive backs. Your ceiling is raised by your pass rush. That's it.
That because, I agree.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I need the.
And again, I'm going to come back to it.
The floor is not raised enough. The pass rush is necessary, I believe. You do need it.
Second year of building, right? And it is extremely difficult, as I've already mentioned, to find pass rushers. So all I'm saying is breathe. That's it. That's it.
Do I look like I'm not?
I'm not speaking to
I'm
you.
I'm saying I'd like another edge. I would have tried a little harder in the offseason, and there's guys available that are not Nimiak and Ngakoue that I would sign right now.
If you don't think we got like Myles Garrett or like okay, let me be honest. If you don't think we got like a good edge rusher tomorrow somehow in a trade or something, I wouldn't be full fucking staff. Absolutely. I'm just saying let's set expectations correctly. That's all. That's all I'm saying. You have to know what resources are available to build the team out.
Sure. I probably want Carl Lawson. It's such a small ask. Just sign Carl Lawson if he's even still interested in playing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But just sign a guy like that.
A lot of the times your asks aren't the ones that I'm pounding against, though, man. That's the other thing.
Asks are usually very reasonable.
Yeah, your asks are very reasonable. I'm not gonna. But also, they're reasonable to an extent too, where I'm like, well, if they don't do it, I also get why they want it. So I don't know. But you look like you're answering something. This is some good dead air.
I saw somebody liked my tweet and I didn't recognize it, and I just had to look back and see what my tweet was. That wasn't that good of a tweet. Boy, meandering. Bad podcasting for the last 2 hours, 15 minutes or so. Yeah, let's move on. The one thing I was going to say is, so had we never traded for Chase Claypool, and this is going to lead into the next move that I will tell you what my setup was going to be. But before we get to that, so we traded the 32nd overall pick ultimately for Chase Claypool. The guy that was taken was Joey Porter Jr. And I just want to say, you and I did a dueling mock in which the Bears traded 2 picks to get Felix and DK Uzomah late in the first round or maybe early in the second round, whatever it was.
Second. It was early second. It was like top 50, barely. Yep.
Oh, it was.
It was close to where our original pick was, if I remember correctly.
Very close.
He ended up going 32nd overall to the Chiefs. He didn't even fall to where we were expecting him.
I'm gonna say so. The crime, the Claypool crime. A lot of people brush it off. Like you said, a version of this, but not brushing it off as if there's no crime. But
it was a terrible fucking pick.
Other people do. No. But they're saying, well, no harm, no foul, because we got Tyreek Stevenson. You said a much saner version of that, but there are people that say, well, it doesn't matter because we got Tyreek Stevenson. Like, no, it does matter.
Yep.
And I would say, just as an example, Enadeka Uzomah was not very good last year, but I think we still. Would either of our long-term outlooks on him have changed that much? Like, I don't.
He didn't get a lot of opportunities. He didn't get a lot of opportunities. So
we could have traded up 2 spots and gotten him, just as an example, and then we would have had our edge, and it would have been good value.
Potentially,
not knowing what the cost of the trade-up is, but leave up 2 spots and take him. That's probably something
you're throwing at that point. At that point in the draft, you're throwing away a 4th-round pick.
So if we're not taking Joey Porter Jr., and I'll just say that the next pick was Will Levis, we weren't going to take him, but could have. Sam Laporta, weren't going to take him, but I would sure like Sam Laporta. Steve Avila and Joe Tippmann go later. That's just another center that we would have had. It would have been good. It doesn't have to have necessarily been Joey Porter Jr. for us to have picked a good player with the 32nd pick. So awful. But as I was going to say, when I thought that you only remembered one trade in season, I thought next we got possibly the best move of Ryan Poles' career, an in-season trade, trading Chase Claypool to the Miami Dolphins for a conditional 6th-round pick.
I know you're joking about saying it's one of the best moves, but can we be honest here? What you can read from that move says a lot about who Ryan Poles is, and it's a lot of good.
So just like there was an example 2 seconds ago, and I forget. Oh, cutting PJ Walker.
He is not afraid.
Admit you're wrong.
Yeah, and he said it. I mean, he said it in nothing we're saying is this is shit that Bears fans know. He said it in his press conference. The guys in the locker room know when you make a mistake. And so if you don't basically admit and fix that mistake, they know that's an issue. They're not going to respect that. And I love that outlook. I love that framework. More specifically, let's come back to, we mentioned Howie Roseman already and him being one of our favorite GMs. Who is a GM that is willing to move off a mistake very quickly? He'll sign a quarterback to a massive contract and then trade him away for, I think it was a couple thirds, right? I can't remember what the Carson Wentz trade was.
I think he did somehow manage a second or 2 out of it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, or Wentz, I think, on the second trade went for a couple thirds when he got traded to the Colts.
Yeah, the Colts.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
The second time
the Colts ended up getting weirdly good value, like maybe a really high 3rd or something like that.
Yeah, it's something. Whatever. I don't understand that shit. Really fucked up.
Wentz had value until he had 0. Very weird, actually.
I think Wentz and Sam Darnold, it should be a podcast. We should talk about the reclamation project quarterback value and how, due to all of the failed reclamation quarterbacks, that value has gone down a lot. So Howie Roseman will draft JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Jalen Reagor, then trade for AJ Brown because holy shit.
Arcega-Whiteside.
Arcega? Is it Arcega? I thought it was Arcega.
Okay. It's like how Spanish kind of lisp their C's. I've heard it. Arcega-Whiteside.
Arcega. Okay. Oh, I'm not gonna. Just in case, I don't want to offend anyone.
I don't think that's offensive. I think it's offensive because I think it's specifically a Spain thing. It's not a thing against a race of people. It's people in Spain lisp their S's a bit.
Okay. Well, moving on. JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
The difference between white guys.
I'm dying. I'm drowning here. um, so what was I gonna say? So he does shit like that, which, to be honest with you, is why he's such a damn good GM. There's a lot to why he's such a damn good GM. Eventually, we'll get into it. I think we're gonna do a GM episode to discuss some of the guys that we respect and some of the guys we don't and why. Um, the
Guys I don't respect.
I got a few, man.
Oh, it's
Uh,
a long. It's a good long
it's a
list.
it's a good list. And then there's a lot of guys that are just the same. So the ability, that is one of the things he's able to do that I think is a fantastic, that is one of the reasons why he's so successful. Is
Good
I
trick.
fucked up.
Don't fuck up in the first place, but absolutely admit it afterwards.
Yeah.
Belichick was good at that.
Yep. When I make a
Belichick
mistake,
would cut a dude a
yeah.
year after spending a second round pick
Yeah.
and no remorse. Just you
Do you
didn't make
know
the team. You're off.
do you know who did the opposite? One of my favorite guys to bring up, Ryan Pace. Instead of admitting to the
Mm,
mistake, he would almost always double down on it. And that
yeah.
leads to leaving that hole linger, and or honestly adding more assets, like spending more assets on a certain person, right? That is a hole in your team. So
So what often comes up in that case is you don't admit the mistake. You convince yourself that this is still good, and on top of that, you do nothing to backfill it because you're so feet dug into the ground that
yep,
it's good. So you don't even do like the thing where you say like, okay, if it doesn't work out, like we at least draft a quarter,
yep.
draft.
I drafted a fourth round pick and maybe added a UDFA at this position. So I got two more shots that were very low cost that
Yeah.
potentially can help me out. You don't even do that. You just dig your feet in and you allow that hole to get even worse.
Meanwhile, Pole's out here admitting, silly way to put it, but out here admitting, boy, maybe Tyreek Stevenson in the second round was a mistake. I should draft Terrell Smith in the sixth round just in case.
Just in case.
I'm aware it's not admitting a mistake, but it's the same type of mindset as like,
Well, we
let's
talk
allow for the
about,
fact I might have been wrong. Let's do this one too. Let's
yeah, when you have a hole, doubling down in the draft is actually a very good thing because your chances of hitting, you're adding to your chances.
right.
So you're just
And
trying to take
obviously, silly
multiple
me to
shots.
frame it as admitting as a mistake, jokingly a little bit, but it
Yeah.
is kind of the same general mindset of like it's humility, like understanding
Yeah.
like this. I could have gotten
I
this
have
wrong. I'm not a
conviction.
genius. Let's do another thing and make sure.
I have conviction, but 32 other teams also know this guy was good and didn't take him right before me, or also have good scouting teams, or good good scouts on there,
Everybody's
NFL
working off
scouts.
basically the same information I have. What makes me
Yep,
so smart? Nothing.
yep.
You just got lucky.
So let me take a couple more chances because I know this position needs to be addressed. That's fine. That's good. It's a good thing to do as long as it also then doesn't lead to, I don't know, kicker carousel like we had in. I'm gonna keep coming back to Pace because Pace does this sometimes, but all he ends up doing is he hyper fixates on the position. He spends a lot of resources at one position and then does not pay attention to any of the rest of the roster. Like you got to make
That
sure you're
drove
also backfilling out.
kicker
But
drove the entire staff insane, not just Pace. That was even I was basically over it after 2 days. They took
we had like 8 guys, dude. But then we did it again at tight end. Like to be fair, Pace would like double dip. And double dip in the wrong way. I don't know why we're signing Jimmy Graham. Anyway, coming back to it. I'm gonna go on tangents. Let's come back to it.
hey,
The move to get off
a
Claypool
multi-part
shows.
series about talking about how bad Pace was might be fun, but that's not this.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
Uh,
honestly bookmark that idea. Just bitching about Pace, that might be fun.
I could go off for hours, man. If it's not obvious. Um, God, and there's still people who think he was good. I genuinely ask you people, is there anything anybody the Bears could hire could do for you to think that it was actually their fault that they fucked up? That isn't just, well, it's just the Bears. And this is if they didn't have this, and that, you couldn't just excuse away. Like there's always a certain subsect of the Bears fandom that will defend a guy who just absolutely sucked. And
Did
it's
he
like,
draft Kevin White? Why do I know? He was the one that drafted Kevin White.
that was his
Yes, he
first pick, I
was.
believe.
Okay.
Yep. Kevin White, that's not unfair though. Kevin White was an injury.
I'm not saying I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm trying to pinpoint because I'm trying to remember anything that he did that I actually did like, other than Mac at the time and JF
Yeah.
at the time.
Yep. Let's
Sonny Allen Robinson was good in the first. Anyway,
let's come back to it. Let's come back to it, please.
You gave me permission. You gave me permission to go off the rails, and now I'm doing it too much.
I know. I need to come back to it too. When we do Bears episodes, man, it's hard to stay focused because when we do a Bears episode, I just want to sit there and talk about everything.
So
And there's too much.
Claypool, we came into the year. He was going to be our third receiver, basically, and
Oh, can we talk about that real quick? Hold on. We came into the year, and I think some people were hyping him up because of camp, and I'm sitting there laughing my ass off because I'm like, guys, we already saw what this guy is. Let's stop, please.
I also saw one camp highlight. I remember retweeting it. One of my few find something on Bears Twitter, quote tweet it, and say something, and I just like went off about what an awful route it was by Claypool. I saw one rep out of Claypool, and it was like the most garbage fucking route I'd ever seen in my life. It was a slant.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Chase, did you for maybe a second want the defender across from you to think that maybe you were doing anything other than running a slant? Because I guarantee you every good receiver in the NFL and every bad receiver in the NFL at least thinks to themselves, I know a slant is just this. But for the listeners, I made a slant motion with my hand. A slant is just this. But what can I do to make it seem for even a brief moment in time that I might not just be doing this?
Yeah.
This dumbass just does the thing. He doesn't think about it at all. He just, I hated him. I hated him so much.
Yep. And I remember that because that's where I then come in. Because I remember you tweeted this, and I come in and I'm like, oh man, but people are hyping his ass up. They're so stoked. He sucked. He sucked so fucking bad. He was awful. And
like, do people think a 15-year-old or a casual person, their idea of a receiver route is just to do the route, the play design that they see on Madden. Like,
yeah, can I just stop you? Can I just stop you?
So much more.
Can I just stop you real quick? People don't think.
What I'm saying is, it's so funny to me that this NFL receiver Chase Claypool has the same idea as this 15-year-old. Like, he's the only receiver I've ever seen that had the same idea as, like, that's a slant. I just go this way. No, dumbass, you fucking have to. Ugh.
No, I agree. I guess what I'm trying to say though, on the note of people don't think, and yeah, sure, Chase Claypool being like them is fucked. What I'm really trying to say is, people see the results, they don't see the what's in between that leads to those results, and if what's in between actually should matter or not. And in that case, it should have mattered because that play was getting shared as a highlight, whereas like I saw a body catch and I saw a shitty slant, and I'm like, okay, why are we sharing this fucking clip?
Yeah. Because he caught the ball. Well, congratulations.
Yeah. So let's come into it. During this year, there were people that highlighted it. Braggs, I'm looking at you. I love you. You've turned into something a lot better than what I thought you were at this time.
Who's
But my
Braggs?
God, it's
Greg
Braggs. Greg Braggs, CHGO.
Okay.
Why were you hyping up Chase fucking Claypool? So coming back to it, we knew going into the season that he was going to be much. We trade him away. We talked about why that's a great thing. Even if what we recouped sucked ass, we lost a second for a fucking sixth, right? A year later. That is terrible value. That is like the depreciation there. That is probably a worse depreciation than buying a brand new car and driving it off the lot, right? That's worse depreciation than I think that is.
Because at least you get to enjoy the car for a second, at the very least.
Even if unless it's a lemon, but in which case you're protected. We got a lemon that we weren't protected from. The fact that we were able to get a sixth for this man after what we saw and his attitude was shocking. The Dolphins then, how he's on the Bills, I don't understand. The ability to admit the mistake, take the cut, a great sign from Poles. I'm going to give it an A specifically for that. The trade sucks. The Chase Claypool era sucked. And the Chase Claypool move was ass.
In a vacuum, I'm going to give it an A- because I think he should have done it probably 3 weeks earlier than he did.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still give it an A. It's that's just why it's not an A+, actually. It's an A, not an A+. I think honestly, if there were no takers 3 weeks earlier, I would have caught him.
Yep.
Not even worth waiting three weeks to get the 6th round pick. But the fact that he got somebody to give him a 6th round pick, it's an A. Yeah.
Now let's take that into let's pretend like Chase Claypool is already gone before we get to the last move. one thing we did last time was talk about where this roster was at and Justin Fields, right, and what he had to work with going into it. I would say we had a much more stable offensive line. Would you agree? At least at this point, we had an offensive
Sure.
line where I wasn't scared he was going to get sacked 9 times by the Browns.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, and also just going in on paper, the fact that we knew our 5 and there was not a single one of those 5 where like, we didn't even know Whitehair was completely washed. Like, going
Yep,
into the year, we thought, like, this is a totally reasonable plan of offensive line-wise.
yep. You can argue that white hair. Some people might have saw white hair as like an issue, specifically because of snaps.
Some of us were screaming depth. Definitely screaming. I was screaming sign Connor McGovern, the other Connor McGovern, to back up at center,
Mhm.
stuff like that. But
Yep,
sorry, go
and
on.
depth did get tested quite a bit. And I will honestly say for what did get tested and what we had, I'm shockingly worked out in my opinion. People may not agree with me. I don't really fucking care.
I can't remember a week when I was specifically like, God damn, this offensive line. Like, God, if it was only a little bit better, we like.
We didn't have an offensive line that stopped our scheme, to be fair. I don't think there are teams that cannot run what they want to run. Let's go back a couple years to when we had to run quick game consistently because there was nothing else you can because even quick game, you were getting torn up.
Yeah.
So let's just say we were down 3 guys at one point. We were down 3 whole starters, and we were resilient enough to be able to play through that game. I think that says a lot to what our offensive line was. Sko, who I believe was very opposite of me going into the season and was screaming bloody murder about what this offensive line was, has admitted recently that he was wrong about feeling that way, right? I believe, and that it was a lot better than it was. So I know going into it, I felt fairly fine with the offensive line. Sko saying that I think makes me feel a lot more vindicated, and I don't really care what Joe Schmo, Mikey, Bear Down, cuz I'm gonna keep fucking bringing that name up because fuck you, dude. Um, or any of those handles have to say about the offensive line because of the play that you saw from our quarterback at that time.
Can I say, if you got Bears in your handle, if you got the name of a player in your handle, this podcast is not for you. Turn this off.
Yeah, turn it off.
I
It's
know
fine.
we only have 5 listeners, but I'm happy to go down to 4. Get out of here.
I'm gonna be
Get out of
clear.
here, weirdo.
I know that this podcast isn't for everyone. We're not trying to cater for a
You
large
you could
audience.
you could put Bears fan in your bio, I guess. Don't put the record in your bio. Don't put in your handle. Like, you're a weirdo, dude.
Hey, Elon NFL does some of the shit that I feel like we get, and he's definitely for this podcast.
I like Elon overall. I mean, he knows dick about baseball. That dude's got to stop talking about baseball, man.
I'm not gonna get into it because right now I'm so off of.
I know, but he's one of the only one of those types of guys I follow. He's not like a wreck. You know what I'm tired. Like the Tyreek Stevenson SZN. Fuck you. Shut up.
Yeah, no, I hear. Yep. Um, to be clear, like we don't give up. Like we do this specifically for us to have fun to talk about shit, and then whoever wants to listen can listen. I don't give a flying fuck who to cater to an audience.
Actually,
Um,
don't. You know what? I'll go a step further. Don't listen. If you're listening, turn this off right now. Fuck you.
all of you, all
No,
of
I'm
you.
kidding.
Let's
As long as
go.
you, as long as you take the stuff out of your username on Twitter, you can keep listening.
Look, I mean, if you
And tell your
if
friends. Tell your
yeah.
friends.
Hit like and subscribe. Pound that.
This
Pound
one
that.
God, there's this one guy that has 2.5 beers and goes
Let's-
completely insane by the end of the podcast. You gotta listen.
um, to be fair, I'm the one who goes off the rails the most about this shit. And I know that a lot of it's probably fucking bad
For the
content,
first
but
hour, I was
I
I
need
was
to
like
vent,
trying to
man.
I was trying to be like, how do I rein Adam in a little bit? And now I'm doing all this.
Let's bring it back. We're running quite long now. We got one more move
Yeah.
to talk about,
Montez
and
Sweat. So Montez Sweat, we traded a second round pick for our own second round pick.
sorry, I just realized I was like, let's talk about what Fields had at the beginning. We talked about the line, and that's it. Um,
Yeah, we can get back to that if we want to, but let's talk
yeah,
about Montez Sweat, and then we have a escape hatch after we're
Yeah.
done talking about him.
We'll talk about what it was like in
Uh,
the beginning and what we ended up with. Yep.
Trade deadline day. So our defense had genuinely sucked. Tyreek Stevenson, as mentioned, had sucked. Jalen Johnson had been awesome. I'm trying to think about the general state of the defense, and it's just like TJ Edwards had been good. Andrew Billings had been good for what
I
he
want to
is.
say Tyreek
And,
Stevenson started to show some flashes before we got Sweat, but I can't remember.
yeah, and then crucially, a point you'll make anyway is the secondary was very banged up around the time they were
Incredibly
getting
banged up.
Sweat, and it was getting back to full health as we got Sweat.
There were three things that happened, and I always push back on the Sweat move being the main reason why we got good, because there are two other things that's hard to like factor in. And we got healthy in the secondary, which we were very banged up at, and we
And the
maintained that
advisor,
health. And the advisor that we got, who I believe helped. If you look at the
Phil Snow, I believe.
yeah, Phil Snow, yes, I believe. Snow definitely. Phil, I believe is right. I'm not 100% sure on the first name. If you look at the play call distribution, I think I posted it on that same thread that I was talking about with the scheme. I posted our play call distribution with the coverages game by game. And if you look at the later season games, you see a much bigger differential like spread in what coverages we ran, specifically game by
More middle
game.
closed, right?
No, we ran more middle open. We started running more C4 because we always run middle close. Technically, our C2, like our C2 Tampa 2 is middle close because you've got the guy in the hole.
I
So
don't
typically, you
consider.
run a lot of
I have
C1
such a
and
hard time
C3.
considering Tampa 2 middle close, but yeah, I
It
get it.
is.
Okay.
It is. It's a C1 C2. It's a C1
I think
C3 variant.
I think you can understand why I would not consider it
I
that though,
because it's
because
cover
it's
two.
so dependent on the middle linebacker being superhuman.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. The other aspect of it though is we ran a lot more quarters and we ran a lot more. We didn't run a lot of C6 or C8. Let me be clear. We ran pure quarters, right? And we ran a little bit
Every
more cover zero, and it was more game to game dependent. So Phil Snow came in to help us game plan for specific opponents. You could see how we went from majority, I want to say C3 and C2 to holy
Mhm.
crap, now we're using in this game for some reason we started using 30% C4. Why are we using cover 4 like that much more? I'm not saying that we used it consistently. It wasn't like 10%, 10%, 20%. No, it'd be like one game we shot up to 40% because we saw something with that opponent that we felt we can expose or we felt we would be better at if we ran quarters.
And I guess
You
to
saw a lot of that.
add a wee bit of context to that is so Alan Williams, our defensive coordinator, who would have been helping out with this, left the team for reasons
Mhm.
that were probably far less horrible than idiots on Twitter would have led us to believe. Um, but so basically, Phil Snow steps in as the de facto coordinator. So basically, I just want to say, not
Can
really
I add
Fluce's fault. Fluce has a lot of irons in the fire. He needed a little more game planning help, and when Williams leaves, that's an issue.
you
It
lose your
probably just turns
defensive
out
coordinator
Phil
as a head
Snow,
coach.
right? So it probably just helps out that Phil Snow is a lot better at his job than Alan Williams, who probably should have been helping Fluce make these same adjustments,
Yeah.
game plan specific, uh, you know, coverage distributions ahead
On
of
top of
time.
it, a majority of the season he had nobody, and when you're a head coach, you've got so many, as you were mentioning, your hands are all over the place. So it's hard
Right.
for you to do those game plan adjustments because you're already spending so much time focusing on other aspects of the game. I want to quickly source. I bring that up. I'm not the one who got that data. I didn't watch the game. That's all match quarters. Coach Alexander, the coach A,
Yeah, some
on
guy.
Twitter. Yep, some guy. You're an asshole. People will know his site as Match Quarters. It's Cody Alexander, the coach A on Twitter.
Yeah, no.
Is who I
To be
grabbed
clear,
the
I was
source from.
saying. So at the beginning of the season, the Bears were not doing this because Alan Williams probably was not very good at his job. Then Alan Williams leaves for a long time, and now Flus is doing this all alone. That's obvious why he'd be in over his head.
Mhm.
Bring in a guy who is A, better than Alan Williams, and B, is a second person in the room to help Flus. That makes a lot of sense as to why things
Mhm.
changed for the better, for sure.
Yep, yep. So just bring those things up, and now on top of that, we trade for Montez Sweat. What did we give up for Montez Sweat?
Just a second round pick.
You know what I love? I'm going to be honest with you. When you trade for a veteran player and you only give up a single pick, and it's a pick for player swap, because I feel a lot better just pretending like, oh, this player only cost me this pick. Like, you know how people say, oh, well, this pick was Khalil Mack. And to be clear, I agree with the Khalil Mack trade. I'm not going to go against it. A lot of reasons for specifically why I'm going to agree, and I've already mentioned a lot of it with this trade. But it's even better when I can actually say Montez Sweat just cost me this one pick. I don't have to say it multiple times. I lost that pick. Well, no, he's part of this draft class too, and this draft class. No, I can literally just say Montez Sweat was just a 2024 draft class. He's part of
Yeah,
that.
there's not like a whole like waterfall chart of like this then led to this. Like, no, this was this.
This was this. It was a 1-to-1 swap, and I love that.
Granted, Washington did trade down the 40th pick that we received for 2 more picks, and so it
But
was a
what
bit
I'm
of a waterfall
specifically
chart.
talking about
But
is what
yes,
you sent on the trade. How many picks did you send? Is it 1?
yes.
Is it 3? Is it, um at the time, I'm fairly sure we were both pretty stoked. I don't remember what I would have graded it at the time. I like the Sweat trade. I think versus Young, I think the big thing was how do we feel about it versus getting Chase Young? And I think a lot of people felt that Chase Young might have a higher ceiling than Sweat. I don't know if that's even true, considering some of the things that I've heard coming out about how Montez Sweat was used by the commies, and also how they built his body and how much more he has on his frame to actually grow as a athlete and a player. That I've heard leak out of House Hall from other reporters. I can't remember it's a source, so I'm very sorry. Not from myself, obviously, and not from any sources that I know myself. Where was I going with this? But yeah, no, the Montez Sweat deal. At the time, I think the only thing that we would have questioned is should we have gotten Chase Young instead? I don't remember how I was grading this deal at the time, though. I want to say it was at least a B. I look at it now, I'd probably give it an A.
This is complicated. This is pretty complicated because then there's also the contract that you gotta factor in. Obviously, with any pick for player trade, there's usually an extension that comes into play as well. I'll
Unless
say
they're already
this:
signed to an extension, but yeah.
right, but usually
Usually
you gotta extend them, or
nine
if they're already
times
signed to
nine times out of
an
10,
extension, you have to take into account the contract that is almost certainly much larger than a player that you'll draft there is making.
it depends. 9 times out of 10, you're getting a guy who's looking for an extension. 1 time out of 10, you're getting a DJ Moore who's just signed to an extension, which is cheap, and even cheaper because you don't have to pay for the signing bonus. But sorry, go on. There's a
Yeah, but you
rarity
still
that you got the DJ Moore set up where we're getting a guy for even cheaper than what you would have paid.
right, of course. But even then, you do have to account for as much as you care one way or the other. You have to account for the fact that he is making more money than the draft pick. It goes into the equation. I'm trying to think back. I weirdly can't speak that intelligently on
The more recent
anything at
moves,
all.
right?
Anything at all?
Like it's a
What do you
Bears.
mean?
The more recent moves are at the last couple moves. Maybe it's because we've been talking for so long. The last couple moves are the harder moves for me to remember shit about, which is sad because it's like these should be the ones that are fresher in my memory. I want to say
I guess
Montez
because the
Sweat at the
Bears just
time.
like sucked, and like I don't. It was like, all right, yeah, good, we got him, but like I'm not. Our team
Yeah,
sucks. It took like 3-4 more weeks for me to be like, oh, the Bears are kind of good. I don't know why I
yeah,
care about this again. Red Zone no longer is on the big TV. It's Bears again.
yeah.
Uh, that's part of it. But what I do know for sure is that public national opinion amongst the guys that we respect were not fans of this trade
Mm-hmm.
for the Bears.
I
And
disagreed with that. I thought that was a little overdone. Even from the guys that I respect, I was like, you guys are being a little too harsh on this move.
so but the
I
reasoning
push back
was
on that.
the reasoning. One of it was that the Bears are not good. What are they looking to add a guy for? And it's like, well, they have
You're
to
aiming
get
for the
good
future.
somehow. So that's
Yeah.
I'll immediately shut that shit down. But it's also, a young building team. It's probably more worth it to them to take a young, controllable, uh, low salary in the second round than it is to trade and then pay for the right to then pay the player.
And I'm gonna come back to this again, and this is where I push back with those people a ton. Was it is very hard to find even starting quality edge rusher who is consistent down to down. It just is. This is I'm not, and
This is what
I'm
I
not gonna,
foreshadowed.
huh?
This is what I
Sorry.
foreshadowed earlier. I'm so good. I'm so good at this.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to when you have an opportunity to add that guy, kind of like the Giants did with Brian Burns, right? They're jack shit. You add a Brian Burns to your team if you can add a Brian Burns to your team, right? Like you just do because especially at the age that both of these players are at, they're coming off their rookie contracts. Yes, you're going to extend them. Yes, you're going to pay them. You're going to pay them more because you traded for them, which means that they have more leverage in the contract negotiations. But in the long run, you don't want them there for the first year. I want them there for years 3, 4, and potentially even maybe an extension for years 5. Specifically because I know how hard it's going to be to find this guy later, right? So if I have an opportunity to add him now, I'm going to add him now, and that's where I was like, guys, you guys are the forest for the trees. You don't need to draft. You don't need to trade for an edge rusher, a high value position. It's high value specifically because it's impossible to find one anywhere else but the draft or in a trade, right? Like you just it's hard to even sign one that's good, right? Um, you don't do that only because you're contending. You do it even if you're team building because you any opportunity you can to find that guy, you're going to take. And when you got a sure thing, you take the sure thing. Now, you can argue if Montez Sweat was as sure of a thing as
That's the reason this is so difficult to talk about is that there are truly so many variables.
Yep.
One of the variables that we haven't even gotten to necessarily is everything that you'd been saying about Yannick Ngakoue and the whole discussion surrounding that is why are we so desperate to add an edge? Like, didn't we just determine that this isn't that important? That's why you didn't draft one or didn't reach for one or trade up for one. Um, there's a bit of that. There's a bit of what is Montez Sweat's true talent level? Is he actually, Bears fans currently believe that he's one of the top
Believe.
10 edges in the NFL. He is not.
Yeah,
Just
but I
just
would
just
so
straight up,
if
he is not.
and
No,
I
no,
would
no.
agree with you. Let me be clear.
Just
There's the elite tier. I don't consider him in the elite tier. I would say he's in that next tier though. Would you not? Would you not put him at a lower end of the tier of like a Brian Burns? Lower end of that tier. Like where Brian Burns might be at the top of that tier, he would be towards the bottom of it.
he might lead off the next tier. I'm not sure though. That's a part of it. It's a
Yeah.
lack of information. We know that he's a great run defender, and
And
as
I
a
do think that
Bear,
plays
it
into it.
seemed that and the Bears themselves have said they see more to unlock as a pass rusher, and he certainly was a good pass rusher on the Bears. It's just unclear to me exactly what level of pass rusher he is. And that'll inform it. It's almost an incomplete for me. But the defense itself, like regardless of the cause, they seem to rally so hard around this move. The Tez effect, I think they called it
Mhm.
on TV. They called it that or whatever. He's almost the anti Claypool, where the opposite of cancer. He was chemo. He was the chemo for the locker room. Like they loved it.
Hold on, radiation. If,
Um,
if you don't have cancer, radiation is pretty poisonous.
well,
He was like taking your
that may
vitamins.
that maybe doesn't bode well for that maybe
The
doesn't
future.
bode well for the future of this then. Like maybe the long term effect of prolonged radiation exposure.
Well, hold on. We might be able to turn into like Superman or like Spider-Man or some shit, right?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
You
You never
never
know.
know what
We got
radiation's going to do to
Spider-Man
you.
on the team. Come on, we're good. Um,
Uh, so there's that aspect. There is again, could we have just used this pick? Like So again, there is polls seeing ahead to whether a draft class is good and determining there was not going to be an edge worth shit at 40. And let me scroll really quick. I believe he was absolutely correct. Marshawn Nealand would have been the best edge available had he stayed there. I think
He's
we both like
already
Marshawn Nealand. We both like
yeah.
Marshawn Nealand a little bit, but I'd rather have Montez Sweat. Would I rather be paying him 98 million over 4 years, about 42 guaranteed? It seems about right. Like if he had hit the open market, he probably would have done a little better than that.
It still's not that bad, to be completely honest with you, especially let's see here. Montez Sweat is even in the top 5
I
if
got
you
some
just look at AAV, his
I got some comparables.
guarantees.
Daniil Hunter in free agency got 2 years, 49, 48 guaranteed. That's less of a commitment in terms of
Yep.
term, but it's more guaranteed. Brian Burns got 5 for 141, 87.5 million guaranteed. That is, I'd rather Montez at this price than Burns, even though I think Burns is a little better. There's just a lot of variables that make this difficult to discuss, but he certainly had a positive impact on the defense in terms of morale and in terms of production. He was incredibly good. He made the Pro Bowl and he deserved it because the Pro Bowl has idiotic rules that make defensive ends in a 4-3 different than an edge, which is why he made it. Going forward, in my ideal world, we would probably have another edge that is as good or maybe even a little bit better than Montez Sweat when the Bears are finally about to win the Super Bowl. But
Or 3 tech that is as good, if not better. And then an edge
yes,
who's Leonard quality. Like if you pair him with another pass rusher inside and then add a quality next edge, if the offense is what we think it could become.
yeah, I agree. I'm listing out a bunch of reasons basically that make this difficult to grade. But yeah, at the time, I think I thought B minus range, and like the vibes around it are just really good. Where like I want to get a little more analytical about it, but like it just seems like A minus B plus to me. They responded so well to it. And again, like you said, there were a lot of reasons the Bears defense did better, but it's not like he wasn't a part of it. The players talked about it in a way that made it seem like they see him as an immediate leader. And also, we just have Montez Sweat now, and we didn't have Montez Sweat before. At a certain point, if your team just has no talent, like you got to accumulate talent somehow. That pick probably was not going to be used on something better. Certainly not in the next 2 years or so. It might have eventually, paid off.
Nope.
But and again, also in terms of acquiring an edge specifically, if you're not doing it in the top 10 of the draft, then the value proposition goes way down. Like the odds of finding a good edge later in the draft is really bad. So like, yeah, there's a lot of reasons that I tend towards yes, this is even better than I thought at the time.
I
But
like
it is an intricate conversation. I'm not going to begrudge somebody if they're a national. If Kevin Cole goes off and says the Bears are still stupid, I'll say shut up, Kevin Cole. You're annoying as fuck. But I would not begrudge him that opinion. I guess is what I'm getting.
let me. I want to add to something. I like Austin Booker. If he ends up being a bust, and we go Dom Rob, Austin Booker, and Deshaun Gibson, no, Gibson. What's his first name? The guy who ended up going to the Titans. Travis. I wanted to say Deshaun, which was the safety. Travis Gibson. If we go 3 guys who all bust in late rounds, guess what? You need another 2 more. You need another 2 more guys before you hit the probability of you should have found a good one. They don't fucking exist. That's all I want to add.
Right. So we were asking for it.
Yeah.
Also, those 2 guys were projected guys, not Travis, but the other 2 were projected guys who were thought of to go higher and then fell because of their projecty status. So I could see a good defensive line coach getting something out of Booker.
But
also,
throw
it's
it
probably
out
not
there.
going to work out. And yeah, that's why.
You're not finding a guy. I'll say it. You're not finding a guy outside the top 16. They're hard to find. The NFL's usually fairly good at putting them up at the top of the draft. I won't say they're good at identifying because you'll see guys go before other guys, right? But they're usually at least fairly good at taking all the picks early on. Um, yeah, it's a position that's hard to find. It's a position that's hard to fill, we've mentioned. We spent a second rounder on a dude who's a quality starter, if not, top tier starter at the position, maybe not elite. I'm gonna second tier down, right? I push back on the Bears fans who want to call Montez Sweat elite. He's up there, he's good. He's very good. You might put him a tier below what I put him, but I think the tiers that we had discussed earlier put him there. A second round pick on that is fantastic. That's what I'll say. And at the time, my only concern, should you have done Chase Young? I think time has proven out that that was
Yeah, that's open and
wrong.
shut. Like, I mean, Chase Young
Yeah,
ended up getting like a 1 year, 2 year, 1 2 year contract worth like a total of 30 million at most. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he got like 15 AAV on like a 1 or 2 year
yeah.
contract. The NFL has spoken.
Yep, and I was worried about having to overpay him. I remember going on a Twitter rant about, "Oh, man, we did really out-leverage ourselves on this." But then when the deal came out, I retracted what I said and said, "No, this deal's fine. I'm actually
There
not that
was
upset by it."
there was the God, I want to say nearly a week period of time where we were worried that we had made the trade without any idea whether we were going to get an extension done.
Yeah, I can't believe I bet on
That's
any of
worth
that shit. I'm gonna give myself crap. I bet on that, and I can't believe I did. I'm real mad at myself for that. Usually, I'm able to pay that shit pretty easily. But sorry, go on.
I mean, you gotta. I don't know if I don't see how you can't bite, how you wouldn't bite on that. You're really going to be so confident? Like, of course they already have it. They've already discussed numbers. Like,
No, it should have been, of course, they're gonna get a deal done. They're gonna find a way to get a deal. It's not that they had discussed
but then
numbers.
are they going to
I have no idea
overpay?
if they did.
Like, and then do we even like this contract? I don't even know. It
I'm
seems
fine with it.
fine. I got the
It's fine.
comps up. Like Burns
I'm not saying
obviously
I like
went
it.
crazy. I don't know. It's a long thing,
We're
and
spending.
I'd say more than anything, it is to be decided. I
Yep.
really really am looking forward to seeing him this year.
Yeah, I'll say this. I would give the move an A right now, A minus. So I think in hindsight, I was saying I was doing B, whatever. I'd give it an A now. I think he is going to be a piece that we will continue to have when we become competitive, and he will be an impact player on that. And all we did was spend money we already had, right? Cash we had.
Yeah,
Remember, this also goes towards that cash spending floor because it's during season. This goes towards that, right? That's why I was like, you guys don't need to be concerned. There are going to be other moves that will happen. It's not just
sure.
free agency. This goes towards that. We had cash that we needed to spend. We have all the cap room in the world to make this move, and he will be a part of this team through 2027. According to this contract, which is several years into when we will be competing. I like the move. I'm gonna sit there and say I like the move. It was a great move. I think we need to be a little bit more nitpicky, and this is where I agree with you. I think the way that Bears fans talk about it was a slam dunk, no matter what, A plus move, king pulls, let's fucking go. There's more to it, and you're right, there is. But I also don't want to leave here saying that we don't like the move. Like there is no vibes, like in my mind at least, there are no vibes from me that say I don't like this move. It just let's
I
back off a little
Vibes is
bit and
really the key
realize,
word for me though. Like I'm back and forth as to whether this is actually good. There's so many variables, and I'm back and forth. And truly, what I leave with right now is that the vibes are positive, and that's what it is for me.
yeah.
Value wise, I don't know. This is definitely not better than the Khalil Mack trade. And the Khalil Mack trade, it's still arguable whether that was actually a good move.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defend it. I'll defend it again because
I
it
will
usually
too.
takes about 2 first-round picks for you to find an edge rusher. That's to get an elite edge rusher, again, going
But
back to
again, for the
percentages,
right to make him the
it would
highest
take
paid
3.
defender in the league, it's just
Right, you're subtracting a first-round pick. It should typically take 3 for the value proposition. You're losing the value on the contract, but I'm also saving a first-round pick on the amount of chances it typically would take for me to find a guy who's really fucking good.
I got it. Yeah,
Yeah,
again, variables on variables. But yeah, I
there's
got
just a
that's all
lot.
I got on Montez.
Yep,
I
there's
would I would expect that I think he will improve as a Bear in the short term. I think he'll the next 2 years, I think we expect Montez to be, a top 15 edge in the league. And that was not always the case in Washington. I think he'll probably become a little better. Just he really seems to goddamn like it here, and he was really good for 8 weeks. So
maybe I need to go through the list of edge rushers, but top 15, man. If you're not putting him in the top 15, that feels steep.
I mean, Brian Burns is around 10. To give you an idea.
Okay, so you got obviously Bosa, Josh Allen. I would agree with the Jags. Brian Burns, DJ Watt. I'm going by like list A, Miles Garrett. Would you put Daniil Hunter ahead of Montez Sweat? I don't know
I
if
think
I would.
Daniil Hunter is probably
Same.
last season was a slightly better edge, but going forward, I'd rather have Montez Sweat for sure,
Yeah.
including
Okay.
this upcoming season.
Would you put Rashawn Gary ahead of him?
That's my exact sweet spot. I think that's exactly.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going by
the type
AAV.
of player
So
I think he is.
Max Crosby, obviously. Bradley Chubb, I would probably put ahead of him. Trey Hendrickson, I would put ahead of him.
Now Chubb, I don't know. Chubb, I'd argue maybe not.
Okay, so I'll take that number. What about Trey Hendrickson?
Jalen Phillips is the Dolphins' edge, who I actually think is probably the better.
Jalen Phillips. Trey Hendrickson?
Uh-huh.
Yep, okay, that's what I thought.
Better.
Would you still put Von Miller up there? I wouldn't.
No, can't possibly.
Joey Bosa.
Yep.
No. Jonathan.
Joey Bosa probably.
I would. It depends on if he stays healthy. Khalil Mack now, I would not. Jonathan Grenard.
Interesting player, but jealous the Vikings have him. But no, I would not put him ahead of Sweat.
Harold Landry. I kind of want to.
No way.
Okay, fine. Bryce Huff.
Nope.
Alex Highsmith.
You're getting into like second year guys who got contracts that they.
Yep, I know.
I'm
going down
deserve.
the list.
I don't.
I'm going down the list. I'll start
think
skipping guys after Hassan Reddick.
No to whoever the last person you said is.
What about Hassan Reddick? He's up there in age.
I think Reddick might be a little better.
Okay, so 10.
It's tough.
Okay, so we're at 10. So now I'm gonna start skipping people. DeMarcus Lawrence, yes, right.
Same
Cameron,
tier. Same general type of player,
so
but Sweat is younger, so I think maybe Sweat.
Okay, Cameron Jordan, I would say is too old now.
No way.
Yep.
No way.
I'm gonna continue. Tell me if I skip somebody. Zadarius Smith, no, right?
No way.
Judon, I would say is no.
Judon's fun, but no.
Okay. Josh Sweat.
No. I think Montez is a slightly superior Sweat.
Clowney.
No.
Okay. Van Ginkel.
No. All right. Now we're
okay.
now we need to get to rookie. We got to get to rookie
rookies.
Contract, guys.
So Aiden Hutchinson, yes. So 11.
Yes.
Will Anderson, yes.
Yes.
Samson Ebukam?
No. He's also not on a rookie contract.
Yeah, no, he's 29. Sorry. He's there, but I recognize the name. Another guy not on a rookie contract, but I do think I should mention is Charles Omenihu.
No. Fun player, good player.
Yep.
Bad person, seemingly.
Kayvon Thibodeau.
Not better. Not yet, but I'd like him. I would rather have him going forward for the next 5 years.
Not a rookie. Arden Key's here. Arden Key's better than what he's getting paid.
Arden Key's all the way down there? That's crazy.
Yeah.
So not better than Montez Sweat.
So Shaquille Barrett. I wouldn't put either of them ahead of Montez Sweat right now. Barrett at one point was absolutely, but same with Davenport. Tyree Wilson.
No.
Yep. AJ Epinesa. God, seeing his name makes it harder to say. So I wish we would have overpaid for him. Yeah, Micah Parsons. We're at 13. 13. Latu.
I mean, probably not. Can't be.
Yeah, we can't. We don't know shit yet. You like Will McDonald. Would you put Will McDonald ahead of him?
No, of course not.
Okay. We haven't seen shit from Turner or Verse. Just like we haven't seen shit from Latu Latu. I don't know why I said his name. Haven't seen shit from Chop Robinson. We already put Phillips on here.
I think the only other
Quiddy
guy,
Pay.
yeah, I was gonna say the only other guy worth mentioning would be Quiddy Pay, and I would say no.
There we go. And yeah, I'm going through these names, and this goes back to how being hard because I'm about to name off a lot of people who got drafted, and not a lot of them are much better than. I mean, Nolan Smith, George Karlaftis. I would put George Karlaftis ahead. Do you agree? Especially
No,
considering the
no, no,
no,
no, no,
really? Okay.
no.
Just considering the rookie
I think
contract too.
Karloff is a nice rookie contract. Still no,
At the same tier
still.
considering contract, no?
I don't think Karloff has really been that good. He's been more of like a. I
I
like
don't know,
Karloftis, but
maybe I
I
hear
don't
his
think
name.
so.
Maybe I hear his name too much.
The Chiefs are on TV a lot, and he makes some
Adafe
plays,
Owe.
but I don't think he's that good.
Adafe Owe. Not on a rookie contract.
It seemed like he would have been really good after his rookie season, but he's fallen off a little bit.
Yep. So there you go. I mean, like, because you said top 16, I'm like, bro, he's there. There's no way. There's just not a lot of edge rushers, man. There just isn't. There really isn't.
I
When
think
you
there's a
go through
chance
the
that you
list,
overlooked. I think there's a chance you overlooked some guys because you went about it in a slightly
how
strange
many?
way. But you're right. Okay,
How many?
so I think there's a way that
You know what? How
probably
about
not
this?
many.
Do an exercise. You love doing your little rankings. Do your little rankings. I'm sorry, that came off really dickish. I didn't mean it like that. do do an edge rusher ranking and actually do it as an exercise, and we'll go from there. I think you were coming off like off the top of your head, you wouldn't expect him to be, but I think he is top 16 easily. If not, my opinion would be he could be pushing for top 10 this year.
Yeah,
I
you know what I
don't
think it
have
is. I think I have. So there's 6 guys. It's more like 5 guys now that are just impenetrable, and then there's like 4 more guys. We're just doing our draft where it's like those 4 guys are clearly the next 4 guys. So in my head,
Yep.
it's like I know there's 9 guys, and then I also know there's Jalen Phillips and
So you think
uh,
there's got to be more there?
a couple other people. But yeah, okay, fine. So he's probably around 12, 13,
Yep.
and he can push for 10.
Yep.
But it'll be over the next like 2 or 3 years. He's still pretty young, but it's I don't know. We've been talking
Yeah.
about Montez Sweat and went way off the
For
rails.
an entirely too long time. But I will say that it was a good trade. I think we got the value there. In my opinion, I think we got value. I would say that there needs to be more of a nuanced discussion. We need to stop putting him as holy shit, he's elite. Like let's put him up there. I think Bears fans have a much higher opinion of him than the general public, even though I do think that the general public has rightfully reconciled and redacted their previous opinion essentially and now agree that it was a good move, right? But I don't think
Yeah,
anyone's sitting there and saying that this is a guy that you build a defense around because he's super elite, and I would agree with that. I think we need to back off a little bit there.
yeah.
Still a
All right,
very good trade.
2023,
It's a
2023 in
second round pick.
total. 2023 in total. I mean, a lot of this happened. A lot of this is like incomplete or just happened. Like
Yep.
Montez Sweat. Did you want to talk about Montez Sweat for another 15 minutes?
No, we came into the season with no real edge rush presence unless you want to consider Ngakwe edge rush presence. We come out of it with one guy who is an impact. I would call him an impact player, but I wouldn't call him an elite player. We came out of it with a very promising young secondary. We came into it with a young secondary. We came out with it with a very promising young secondary. And honestly, in my opinion, a back seven that can prove to be elite in the league. Um, we came into it with a wide receiver room of what I thought was fine for most quarterbacks. I would think that you can do enough with DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney being a lower wide receiver too, but I've seen quarterbacks do more with less. And an offensive line that is okay, top 18 in the league, top 20 in the league, which is you regress towards the mean. Honestly, you need average for passing. but an offensive line that, if you exclude quarterback runs, I believe was like top 12 in the league in rushing, if not higher. So even excluding quarterback runs, we were up there and we're pretty good in the run game. And now you're coming out with it with a receiving room that, before anything else happens, was just DJ Moore, because we're losing Darnell Mooney. It's a free agent. And you're coming out with it with an offensive line that has questions on the interior, but at the bookends looks fine. At worst,
Really just a
passable.
question at center. A question
Yeah.
at center.
Yeah. And depth. I would say
Davis, but yeah.
interior line
Depth,
depth too. And so you're looking at a team that went from absolutely nothing to, hey, we got some shit. Like, we're kind of building. I felt pretty good going into this offseason, and we'll continue from there on the next time we record, man.
Yeah,
See
you
what
gotta.
happens.
I don't think it's worth grading. It just, I mean, it was clearly good. The Edmonds thing sucked. The big trade, the trading number one, even better in hindsight. Like we said, we gave individual grades.
I think because of the impact moves we had with, so I don't know what I would have given it at the time, because I don't think I graded the entire thing at the time, right? I don't think I can give you that, but what I can give you in hindsight, I can give you a hindsight grade. Considering the trade for DJ Moore and the first round pick, which, to be fair, needed a lot of luck to be the number one pick, so I'm not going to consider that. I'm just going to consider it like a top 10, because you could probably feasibly see the Panthers being a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
before we knew what it actually was going to be.
I think we were thinking, even if Young is good, this is almost certainly a top 10 pick.
Yep. So you could say feasibly a top 10 pick, and DJ Moore, and you got Chase Young, and you've built Darnell Wright, so you've got the bookend, like another tackle. On top of, this the value we got with TJ Edwards and Andrew Billings, two very, I think, high value moves, low risk, high value. I probably would give that year, considering everything considered, a B plus, if not higher.
Yeah, I
Now
think
in hindsight,
at the time, Edmonds and my disappointment with not being more aggressive would have given me an overall of like a B minus. And I'm not gonna factor.
I think
Should I factor
Edmonds.
Sweat in? Sweat just feels so removed from everything else, but I should factor Sweat in.
Factor Sweat in. To be fair, Edmonds is the reason why I can't give it a name.
The thing about, I guess the reason is, after Sweat, I already knew how everything else turned out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it weird. It's like I already knew that DJ Moore was awesome, and I already knew which draft pick were working.
Which is why I can't give it a hindsight grade. I skipped the hindsight grade for a reason.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it.
I skipped the at the time grade. I'm just doing a hindsight grade only.
Yeah. After the Montez Sweat deal, what I would have given Ryan Poles for everything he had done since the conclusion of the 2022 NFL season would have probably been, at least a B plus. It might be A minus. That's the thing. I also knew the Panthers were like 1-7 when we got Sweat. It's hard to do for that reason.
That's why I'm not doing it.
Just not being able to. Oh, you're saying do a hindsight trade?
Just do a hindsight grade.
Yeah.
I can't. It's hard because I don't know what
hindsight, but understanding the process of getting the Panthers pick was without knowing it's the first overall pick. I would say, yeah, a B plus. I mean, the Edmonds thing really sticks in my craw. Even right now, like I said, I wish we had Javon Hargrave and not Tremaine Edmonds, and I don't care.
To be fair, I think we're knocking at what, a letter grade, like a half letter grade. We're going from like an A minus to a B plus. We're not trying to sit there and say the Edmonds thing, oh man, that really fucked shit up. But that's a half letter grade, right? On top of not being as aggressive as he could have been. And by aggressive, what we really mean is there were some value signings that we could have gone over on value signings that we just didn't do.
Yeah. And then just pulls his whole process, his whole 2-year grade. I would say, just in terms of how this rebuild is going, again, not knowing that we're about to get Caleb Williams, but just how he's gone about it. a little lower. It's still like a B because the Fields handling is just weird to me. The Claypool stuff was all bad, so it's like a B minus.
I would have to give it the same grade as I gave the last year because I think tearing down is the easy part, and you just do the tear down like that, right? So it almost doesn't that grade almost doesn't factor in because it's such a
He still
simple part of it.
he just screwed up the tear down a little more than I think was
With the
necessary,
Chase
honestly.
Claypool
And
move, yeah. Okay, fine. You know what? Because
Claypool and the screwing up the comp pick. It's just a little like you didn't. This was the easy part, and you kind of screwed some parts up
yeah.
about
And
this.
to be clear, he's probably learning from a lot of this. He's a rookie GM, so we're not trying to sit here and be like, "Oh, this makes him a bad GM." No, we expect him to have learned from it, right?
B minus is a good grade.
And B minus is a good grade. I'd probably give him a B. B minus.
If I got more B minuses in college, I'd live in a much nicer place than this. If I more consistently got B minuses, I should say.
I'm not going to say anything. So, I mean, to be fair, my undergrad GPA was not as good as my grad GPA, so I shouldn't talk shit. Probably would be in the same place.
Bro, I skipped. There was a class where you could drop your lowest exam score out of 4, and I showed up to only 2 exams. The first one I was like, I don't have to go to this exam. Doesn't matter. I'll just drop it. And I decided to not to go to another exam.
It's cool. My freshman year, I was so fucked up all the time that, and I became a better student after this. I was so fucked up all the time that I didn't show up to a class until the last day, and my professor gave me all the exams during the final exam. So I took 4 exams that day. That was fun.
Oh, that's close to a recurring nightmare that I still have. Like thinking I'm still in school and then waking up and be like, oh, thank God I'm an adult.
Yeah. But
Anyway,
anyway, god damn, 3 hours and 15 minutes on the 20.
we were on a great pace at one. Not a great pace, but on a good pace at one point. And
It
then
was the Claypool.
we'll discuss after we turn it off. We'll
Yeah.
discuss after we turn it off.
That last hour and 15 minutes were just brutal. So I'm Adam. That's Kevin. This has been Virginia's DMs.
Bye-bye.